Good afternoon, everyone. I will call today's Policies and Priorities Committee meeting for Monday, November 2020 at 1 p.m. to order. Are there any additional items to the agenda? I do believe we are going to move the Citizen Committee on Council Remuneration up to just before the operations. Is that correct, Marcy? Okay. Oh, okay. All right, well, we'll watch for him then. All right. So are there any additional items to be added to the agenda? Mr. Wagstaff, Director Wagstaff.
Not an additional item, but I do want to just let the legislative clerk know that there are 3 additional slides I will be adding into the municipal enforcement presentation.
We've already passed those out. Your senior enforcement officer provided those.
For the screen that comes up, though, I'm just going to drop them in, so I didn't want to surprise you when it came up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Director Wagstaff. So, yes.
Do we have a closed item for this agenda? No? Okay.
The likelihood is that when the RCMP do their presentation on statistics, there is a personnel matter that we will basically, statistically wise, go closed.
Thank you, Mr. Merritt. So seeing no, is that an added item then?
Nope.
Okay.
Just happened under that
Okay.
agenda.
Oh, all right. Thank you. So seeing no added items under, could I have someone please move the adoption of today's agenda? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would ask that I would move the adoption of the Policies and Priorities Committee regular agenda for November 2nd, 2020.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 2, adoption of the previous minutes. The Policies and Priorities Committee minutes from October 5th, 2020. Are there any comments or concerns in regards to these minutes? I have one just for clarification. On page, under new business, one of the motions reads that council will accept the report on animal control and by land use bylaw for future P&P meeting, but yet under the public consultation report on murals, we didn't say come back to a future P&P meeting. We've said to come back to a future council meeting. And when I reflected back on the minutes, that's what each individual one said. So should we make a correction, or is that how we're proceeding, or is it
No,
important?
the intent would be that they would both come back to P&P and then they would proceed on to council.
So then we should amend that to say that the 7B would be, that was my motion, that this should come back to a P&P, future P&P meeting. Thank you. Any further comments on the adoption of the prior minutes? Could I have a motion, please? Mayor Majewska.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I would like to move that we accept the minutes for the Policy and Priorities Committee meeting for October 5th, 2020, as amended.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? I shall call the question then. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. We will now move on to reports and statistics, starting with a presentation from Fire Chief Andrew from the Olds Fire Department, please.
You can scroll down, it's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, thanks. Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. Thank you for having me for our third quarter fire department statistics for 2020. In our third quarter, our total number of incidents were 68, 49 of which being urban. When we look at our previous statistics from previous years, we see that this number is down from the average trend. And of course, we attribute that mostly to the fact that the summer months were spent with a little less travel due to COVID. So less people moving through the community and out and about, and the staycations were probably a big part of that. As far as incidents to look at, we did have some fire incidents, which are 7. Not to raise alarm over those specifically, but we did account for some of the instances where it was reported with the arson activity that has been investigated. So again, that would be higher than the average trend or the typical responses or incidents for a current year. We also want to draw attention to the medical assist portion, accounting for a large number, and this again, a slight increase due to COVID for serious incidents where we would be requested of assistance of EMS. And the rural incidents, we look down to 19. Large majority of them were motor vehicle collisions, which would be accounted for out on Highway 2 or 27, Alberta numbered highways. Motor vehicle collisions within the county on county-owned infrastructure only account for 3. And you can see that through the other numbers, very small and not too many summertime incidents. Again, that was due partially to COVID, and also because we had a fairly moderate summer where we didn't see the dry conditions where we were doing outside fires and things like that. So we had a very easy summer, and that's a great statistic to have. If we look at our average shoot time numbers that we are reporting, so our average shoot time, which is the time from the page out to the time that an effective response force is leaving the hall, for this quarter we were at 5 minutes and 49 seconds. That's slightly up from the 2019 average. Again, these pieces are, this data reporting is fairly new to us, so to speak into the trends is hard to do when we only are looking at 1 year and 1 quarter. But we are managing that, and any time that we can keep a shoot time below 6 minutes is a very reasonable and a positive thing for a paid on-call fire department. Our average en route time, which is the time of travel to the time that we arrive on scene with that effective response, is 5:09. And again, that's down from 2019, which is a good thing because the faster we get there, the faster we render service. And just keep in mind that these averages are all inclusive of our entire service area. So this is rural and urban average. So this is globally for our fire service district, not just within town. The average response time, which would be the number of minutes spent on an average incident, is actually 12 minutes and 8 seconds. And that's come down from the 2019 of 30 minutes and 48 seconds. Again, these statistics are hard to prove trends, but what I would surmise with the difference between these numbers is that we had a large scale incident that took a lot of time in the same third quarter last year, which would skew those numbers substantially. Average number of responders, or sorry, average number of personnel on scene would be 5.25 people. And in 2019, it's 5.5, so that number typically would stay consistent based on the types of incidents. And then the average number of total people responding, these would be the ones that completely come to the call, would be 8.75, which is slightly higher than last year at 8. Part of that can be attributed to COVID because our own members are not traveling as much as they would have been or working away from home, so we see a rise in our response capability. And the big thing is to speak to is that is a good demographic to know that we have a healthy response for the majority of incidents. So again, we don't look at that saying 8 people for structure fires and major incidents. That's an average of everything from the very small 2-person responses for medical assists right up through. So I'm quite happy with those numbers. Again, in the comparison, the next slide down is just your comparison of urban 2019 versus 2020. So again, you can see that there's some similarities and some stark differences, which again are part to do with the COVID response and circumstances of that. But otherwise, things are on par. Rural incidents, again, there's slightly higher responses for motor vehicle collisions. Again, this is partially because of COVID. has slowed everything down on the roadways, but again, it's a matter of weather and circumstance. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Chief Andrews. Are there any questions or comments to be directed to him? Thank you. Seeing none, then I will call for a motion to accept his report for your information. Oh, sorry, Councillor, my apologies, Councillor Thompson.
I would move that council adopt the third quarter 2020 statistics reports from the Olds Fire Department for information. And just acknowledge the fire department for their really professional service in looking after some people in our neighborhood this weekend. It was remarkable to see them in action.
Thank you so much for that comment. Any further comments? Oh, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Yes, and I concur with Councillor Thompson. I did have, there was an incident right across the road from where I live and right beside Councillor Thompson, and it was amazing to watch our guys in action because, you know, you talk about it, you hear about it, but to see them work so well and be coordinated and work so quickly, it was a tremendous, you know, ability to have an opportunity to watch them. But also, I did receive quite a few comments from our neighbors who said, you know, it was amazing to watch. So I kudos to the department. You guys were had such a quick response, including our CPO, who rode his bike over from Deer Meadows School and was there at the same time the deputy chief arrived. So that was pretty pretty wild. I was really surprised. You know, the response was great. So thank you very much, and kudos to all the.
Thank you. I'll make sure to pass those accolades along to the members, and they're appreciative of the support. And I hope we didn't have radar to see CPO Christensen, because I think he was exceeding the speed limit.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Any further comments? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor. I'll call a question. All in favor? Thank you so much. Motion is passed. Moving along to the next item on our agenda, which will be the Olds Municipal Enforcement Report from our Senior CPO Officer, Eric Christensen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz and Council. So today I have my stats up here today. This is my third quarter report, and again, I just want to comment that because we changed the way that we do our reporting, I can't compare them to the 2019 numbers because they would not match at all, just the way that we have it set up. So I can't compare them. I know that they were busy last year as well, but we'll be able to do better numbers next year. So with having said that, we'll just move down to the next one there. With our stats here, we didn't have any snow or ice in the last third quarter, so that's a good thing. But we did have 100 unsightly premises that we dealt with and nuisance properties, 52 animal control, and 21 public behavior. Public behavior is anything from noise to vandalism to that type of calls. In our traffic section, we had 58 calls. Most of it was parking, consisted of parking, a little bit of speed, and now with these are speed complaints, so this would have been complaints coming in from the residents. Other bylaws, we had 11. Those would be something that we would be assisting with development, with land use, or waste management, or something like that. So those are just ones where we were assisting other departments. In our violation end, we had, in our third quarter, we had 390 with 279 warnings and 111 actual violations. We had a little bit of municipal stuff. Our municipal stuff is always down, and the reason why we have it down is we try to go under provincial if we can. Just a little bit easier and a little bit cheaper for the municipality if we can go under a provincial charge. The other thing that we wanted to add that wasn't in previous was our positive tickets. We had issued 63 positive tickets, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. We had a couple dogs impounded and a few cats. Mostly cats that were turned in by residents to the vet's office that they'd found or whatever. Okay. So here's just a bit of a breakdown of what we had discussed with the third quarter incidences. You can see the ones that we've dealt with. Most of it, of course, is community standards. 50% of our time is being dealt with community standards. The rest is kind of a little mix of everything. Our method of reporting, so this is, I keep track of how these calls come in. We have our dispatch service or our officer observed, and then the rest is kind of a report problems or phone or staff or letters, directives from admin. As you can see, a majority of our time is either dispatch or through officer observed. And this is just a bit of a breakdown on the violations, so 466 total violations. You can see that a majority of our stuff is warnings and educational. The rest of it is a little bit of municipal warnings. The rest of it is either positive tickets or awaiting disposition. Awaiting disposition means that we've issued the ticket's sitting in the court system and we haven't received findings on that yet. Okay, so this is a new one that I added for our third quarter, and we'll be continuing this. So I wanted to keep track of when our calls were coming in, whether we had officers on or not on, or if we had them but they weren't available. So since June 1st to now, we had 395 calls. 277 there was officer actually on duty. 23% of them was no officer on duty, so that would be a Sunday, or if we have a officer on in the morning but not in the evening, or vice versa, and that type of stuff. And then the officer on duty unavailable to attend, I wanted to add that stat in. And what that is that if an officer is away on training, he's on duty but he can't attend to do any type of enforcement. So that's a number that we added in on there. Okay, so bike patrols. So we introduced bike patrols officially in July once we got our bikes. We've logged about 500 kilometers this season already. And in fact, both myself and Officer Reed were out on Halloween on the bikes throughout the community. We've been really out promoting the positive ticket program as well as trail safety for the cyclists and for the pedestrians. So educating on helmet usage and that type of stuff. And then our positive ticket program, we've been busy out handing them out. We've been working in conjunction with the RCMP and the fire department, handing out coupons for slushies, which were really popular at the splash park when it was warm out. Just a thanks out to Circle K for sponsoring the program, and we've issued 63 positive tickets to date. Our unsightly and nuisance properties was a big push that I had started early spring. We've been really successful, and as you can see by the map, we've pretty much covered most of the town. Everybody's been really good about complying. We did have to escalate 7 of them up to a municipal government MGA order to just kind of give them a little bit more of a push. Okay, so our traffic initiatives. July was Distracted Driver Month, so we were just out patrolling and dealing with people on their phones and doing education, or some of those educations might have been a yellow education form as well. August was Impaired Operation and Cycling Month. We were just out patrolling and dealing with educating the cyclists on bike safety. As for the impaired operation, CPOs were not authorized to deal with impaired operators, but sometimes we do come across them. Normally our process would be to contact the RCMP. If the RCMP aren't available, the CPOs do have authority to give 24-hour suspensions if we feel that they need that. So, September was Back to School Month and Speed Month, so of course we spent a lot of time in September in our playground zones enforcing both safety and speed. Spent a lot of time doing pedestrian safety and enforcement and education with that. Okay, so we've been out busy educating drivers on various traffic laws. Although this isn't our main mandate, we do traffic when we're going from bylaw calls to calls in between. And I just wanted to kind of hit a couple things here that, you know, our stats are showing that we do a healthy comparison of warnings versus violations. And I've heard and seen a few comments in regards to all the peace officers do is write tickets and stop people, and they are correct that we do stop a lot of people. I just wanted to show that we are doing a lot of education. So out of 466 offender interactions, 284 of those were actual warnings. And 63 of those were positive tickets, and only 119 were actual issued tickets. So we have a fairly healthy comparison between actual violations and education. So it's community events, our officers have been out in the community. There's been a lot of, you know, events canceled due to COVID, but our officers have been out patrolling parks, and including the off-leash dog park. We've been doing lots of walkthroughs of the farmer market, just ensuring everybody's staying safe, and working through the community. We did help the fire department and the RCMP at the elementary school, helping put up the equipment. I'm not sure why Officer Reed is just standing there holding a shovel, but
And there's a photo bomb happening there. The next person in frame is kind of like just jumping in the picture.
yeah, exactly. I'm actually doing the work. Yeah. So I didn't have any other pictures, so I did have to show that picture with him holding up the shovel. So I guess every job needs a supervisor. Okay, so just for an update, what's coming up? We are gearing up for the snow and preparing procedures for pedestrian safety and walkthroughs through the town. And then October was Pedestrian Safety Month, and we've been pretty busy enforcing those crosswalks, especially the one on 2A has been a fairly busy one for us. We've had lots of enforcement education at that intersection. So I've had lots of community members come up and say how thankful they are we're out there enforcing that. So we have been in other ones, not just that one. So before we go to questions, I wanted to add in the report that I did hand to you guys after the report was put in. So when we're talking about our enforcement and what we're doing with the tools that we have currently, so just between January 1st and October 28th, just in speeding warnings, we've issued $74,512 worth of education, okay? So if you can see that we've got it split down between myself and Officer Reed. It's not that Officer Reed isn't doing anything in regards to speeding. The issue is we only have one radar unit and one laser unit, so my car has the radar unit, so I can do a lot more of speed enforcement while I'm going to calls, where Officer Reed has to be stationary to do with the laser. So one of the things that I just wanted to point out, with proper tools, we're able to do different types of education. I know the second one there, the number's fairly big, but that is the cost of education that we are trying to promote within the town of Olds. So between January 1st and October 28th, $188,742 is our gross amount. So that's before, you know, the court system takes 40% off of that if we were to actually issue that ticket. But this is $188,000 that we've issued in warnings. So again, what I wanted to reiterate is, you know, when the residents are saying that all they see is the peace officers stopping people, yes, we are, but we're doing a lot of education. And then the last one I wanted to add in there was our actual violation revenue. So again, this is the gross amount before courts, but $75,612 was actual revenue for violations. And out of that, just about $16,000 was actual speeding revenue. And that's revenue that is out there. One of the things we have to remember when we do issue a violation is it can take up to 2 years before we see this money. Because if we issue a ticket, they don't deal with it, it gets convicted in absence, it goes on their registration, and some people don't register their vehicles, you know, every 2 years, so we may not see the money for 1 to 2 years down the road. So it's just one of the things we have to remember when we're talking about revenue from fines and violations. Okay. Now we can go to the questions.
Thank you very much, CPO Christensen. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Councillor Harper.
Would you like a motion first to accept the report for information, and then a question? Okay. So anyways, I have the question just for clarification. In CPO Christensen, when you say that revenue is $75,000, which would take a few years perhaps to actually come to the town of Olds, is that the revenues that the province takes a big percentage of or not?
Yeah, so anything that we write provincially would have their 40% taken off of it. And 40%, what that covers is your court costs, your prosecutor, the court staff, that type of stuff. So that's what that covers. So the money that would be 40% less of that.
As well as a victim's, there's a portion of that that goes to a fund on victim
fine
services.
surcharge.
Or,
Victim fine surcharge.
there you go, thank you.
Counselor Bennett.
Move them for the motion.
Okay.
I move that the Municipal Enforcement 2020 third quarter report and year-to-date statistics be accepted as presented.
Thank you so much. Are there any further comments or questions? Seeing none, the motion is on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you so much. Moving along now, then we will have, I see, Mr. Cummings has arrived, and he is going to do an update and a report on the Citizen Committee on Council Remuneration. So, Mr. Cummings, please welcome and come up.
Hi. Do I push a button first? Still on. Okay. Good. Sorry, I guess I'm not that loud. The speaker's back there. So we submitted the report last meeting before. We were asked to go back and interview the councillors and get some input from them. We did. We made some changes to our report, basically addressing the concerns mounted by the councillors, and that's the lead-up time to a meeting or preparation time concerns, that those are taking longer and longer as more details are being presented in the committees, and that they wanted to be, or they wanted us to look at remuneration for that time period. So we did add a change here where we allow for that in section 1.e or 1e of our recommendations. We asked that paragraph 2.2 have added to it adequate preparation time for the above. And that's items that can be claimed as a per diem. Because we felt that, of course, that leads to really a how many hours did you spend prepping for the meeting question. We did put in some other caveats to the program or the policy allowing for change. So the total amount of per diem is not in the policy. Of course, that's in the budget. The budget, you guys determine when you approve the budget how much you can claim as a per diem for the year. So we've asked that several things be changed in that, of course, to reflect the change in our policy here. One that, like other municipalities, instead of having all the councillors lumped together in $1 amount, to have the councillor budgets broken down by councillors. We gave a couple of examples of that in our report of other towns and municipalities that do that, and have it displayed quarterly throughout their web page or websites. That's obviously for the citizenry to see how that money is being spent. When we reviewed the budget over the past several years, the budget didn't seem to be a concern to the expenses that were being claimed by council, in that they were significantly over budget every year. As an accounting student myself, I find that kind of odd. The budget is still put on the same amount every year, but doesn't seem to matter too much. So we added one in there to kind of address that concern that we, the citizens, had. And that was that before any councillor be allowed to exceed their budget, they have to have approval to exceed their budget at a council meeting. It just seemed a little fair to us that if we're going to give you this open door to pretty much claim anything you want and any amount that you want, that you have to have a catch in there and just can't keep claiming and claiming what you want to do. We also recommend that the approval process be put into policy rather than being given to one person, the mayor or the deputy mayor, to approve any councillor's claims, that it be put through into a policy and that the policy be allowed to approve or disapprove the claims. It's already in this policy for that to be created, but after talking to staff, that has never been created. And so that seems to be a gap in that process that we thought was a concern. And as the town gets bigger and bigger and we are doing more and more work, which was brought up during the council meeting over and over again, or sorry, our interview meeting over and over again, micromanaging to that level at the council level seems to be an onerous task, as the councillors were the ones who brought that to our attention. And that, in a nutshell, are the changes that we made to the committee policy. We did not increase any of the dollar amounts. We didn't think it was prudent at this time to do so.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cummins. Thank you again, too, for you and your committee to meet with council. And when you did, we all appreciated the opportunity to speak with you. And I would like to now open it up for comments or questions, if I could, please. Mr. Cummins. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Regarding the addition of having our expense sheets posted quarterly, I believe the final total at the end of the year is the most important total, which would be it's reported in the financial statements. It's very clearly stated as to what councillor or mayor has collected throughout the year for their job that they're doing. So I don't really feel that it's necessary that it needs to be posted monthly or quarterly. I know some other councillors have done some investigation, and there's very few that actually post them quarterly. So that's one of my comments on that.
Thank you, Councillor Overwater. Any other comments? Councillor Thompson.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cummins, you mentioned some budgets that might have gone over. I'm curious about what you felt there, and yeah, I don't have a concern with sharing that detail quarterly, monthly, as it's needed.
Thanks. So what we saw when we looked at, I don't have the budgets with me today, but what we saw was because we've added the one caveat there that you can claim prep time, right? There's no way to control what prep time is, right? So you can say, I spent 10 hours to prep for that 1 hour meeting, and the claim process would go through. Without a check or a balance in that, we've literally opened the door to claim whatever you want. When we saw the budget, which is how that per diem is controlled, and the fact that the budget has never been followed. The overage in that particular line on the budget, sorry, not the budget in whole, but that particular line on the budget seems very irrelevant to what amounts are actually claimed. We just felt that a more robust check on that amount was required when we really just, like I said, we've opened the door up and for councillors and the mayor to basically claim any amount that they want. So without some sort of check and balance on the budget to control how much is spent, there really is no point to that accounting process at all. So that's what we meant about the budget not being seen through, and if you look at the budget that's presented on the town website, you can see that particular line. It's thousands and thousands of dollars out of whack.
Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Well, I'm not sure, then obviously I'm not looking at the same budget as everyone else. Due to the fact that there's two lines on the budget. One is the mayor's and one is all the rest of the 6 elected officials. And to my understanding, we have never gone over in our budget. I'm sure our administration, our CAO or CFO would have brought that forward to us. So I find that very confusing that we're just hearing about that now. If that is an actual fact that we have gone over, which maybe an individual councillor may have gone over. However, there's one line on the budget, and that one line on the budget encompasses 6 other councillors. So possibly one councillor said he or she was going to go to a convention. They decided not to go to a convention, so another councillor went, so then that budget went up, but the whole line, there's 2 lines on the budget. So I'm not understanding that if administration hasn't brought it forward to us before that we have gone over. I find that very concerning, because we've always thought we're within our budget.
Thank you, Councilor Water. Director Linderman?
I think when he references one line, you mean the per diem line in particular. So council as a whole has not gone over their council budget. The one line item, I'd have to look back. I don't have that information with me right now, but I do believe 2019 was a little bit over. I don't know. But I will look back at it for sure.
I can bring you the references that I took off the website for
Yep.
those 3 references. But just to address one thing that was brought up by the counselor, you're right, it's all 6 counselors, and we brought that up in the committee report, that it needs to be broken up into into individual counselors' expenses, not all 6 counselors, because you were right. You may not have gone over your personal identified budget, but we don't see in the budget that there is a personalized identified budget. Just this is the counselor's budget. And it's a sum amount on the budget, not an individualized budget, where we felt that lots of other examples that we had pulled out did that, broke it down by counselors, even if it is simply a straight up divisible by 6.
Councilor Ryan, were you ahead of the mayor? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it being broken out. I mean, we do break it out with regards to the annual report. I believe all of our names are listed in how much money has been totaled up for each counselor at that point. And I'm not sure if you were able to see that on the
I
annual
wasn't
report.
able to find that on the website at all. The only thing I was able to find were the actual budget papers themselves, actuals and estimates.
Yeah, it definitely is in the audit statements. It's a requirement that each individual counselor's expenses get reported, and the salaries as well, so as well as the CAO.
So I just want to have a clarification from you, if you don't mind. When you're talking about the prep time, so we're just doing our council budgets today and for the next year. And so what you're looking for would be to say, well, if you're going to add in, say, an hour of prep time for each council meeting, that should be included in the budget, and we should have a line for that. Is that what you're thinking?
Nope, not at all.
Okay, so what are you
So-
thinking?
The budget itself doesn't break down what you can claim or how much of what you can claim for any particular dollar amount that's in the budget. This is your per diem claimant. There are no rules, there are no regulations. There's simply the mayor's approval or the deputy mayor's approval based on the policy document. So long as it's included in that list of things that you can claim for per diem, claim away. You can claim 10 hours of prep time for a 1-hour meeting. There's no dollar amount in there in this policy that says this is how much you can claim or not claim. Speaking to staff, there was no direction or no policy in place from staff about what could be and could not be claimed as a per diem in its amount. So long as it's in that bulleted list in paragraph 2.2, you can claim it. And then the authority to approve that claim for everybody is the mayor, and then the deputy mayor for the mayor. That's the only thing we were able to find, and the only thing staff were able to confirm with us is a policy on this. So right now, there is no, that's why we've asked for, recommended that you folks, through the administrative staff, come up with a policy to enforce what can, can't, how much of what and where and when. That's not, it's already in this policy to do that, it just hasn't been done. And again, we've spoken with the administrative staff here at the town office that does this, and the only thing they've told us is this is the form, we have a form, we get the form goes through the mayor or the deputy mayor, and then they just look at it again and stamp it. There was no direction there on their side of the house for that. So to answer your question, I don't know. You just put the claim in and see if it gets through. There's no direction one way or the other.
Well, there is direction, as you indicated. It is section 2 of the policy where per diems are basically discussed, and it talks about per diems per duration of event, so to speak. So, and I list what types of events are claimable. So that's sections 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3 that talk about it.
Which is what I just said.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
That is the only policy to answer her question, because that doesn't answer her question. Her question was how much you could, if I understand the question correctly. The question was, is what kind of controls about that particular new bullet are in place for how much you can claim for that? And there isn't. That's just the total dollar amount that you have in the budget. 2.2, if we add that sentence in there, that bullet in there, there's no control now on how much you can claim for that bullet. And that I think is what you were asking me, right? If I understand it correctly.
Actually, it was more along the lines of, do you put in, we have a list of all of our committees that we're on, and we go through them all together, and we discuss how much the per diem would be, so that we have a good, accurate account of how much money at the end of the year would be for a certain committee. So the thing I was thinking is, you mentioned about prep time, and so you would need to put in that prep time into that budget, because if you're not, then you're gonna be over the budget.
Absolutely.
So basically, I'm saying, do we add in, so you're suggesting that we do have some amount of money that we would claim for as a per diem per prep time, but then, we just finished doing our budget, we didn't add in any prep time whatsoever. So I'm just not sure what your check and balances would be for that, and if we need to add something in the policy, I'm fine with that. I mean, I'm all about and so is the rest of council, about trying to make sure that this is all transparent, so.
Well, we don't, right now, there's nothing in the policy about, other than the fact that your meeting normally lasts an hour, right? It's an estimate time of your meeting. Meetings can last longer or shorter, but your estimated budget that you're created, which is what you're doing, is just estimating your budget. You'd have to estimate, yep, this is how much prep time I'm going to do all year, and then throw that into your budget. Now, unfortunately, timing, you've already done your estimated budget for 2021, I guess. That's what you're saying. So unfortunately, we've missed that aspect to add that in there, unless you make an amendment to the budget thing. That's outside my scope to do that, or to even recommend that, right? That's a budgeting issue. But the only way you would be able to do this is to add it with all of the other estimates that you throw in on your budget. Yep, I'm going to be estimating that I'm going to be required to do this much prep time. And again, that's a anecdotal thing right now, because we talked about that at the meeting. How do you gauge how much prep time you have or haven't used? Unless you're analytical about it out of nature, you have to become more analytical about it so you can get a better estimate. That's all I can suggest on that side, right? But that's all part of your budgeting process that you're used to anyways, and is outside of this policy, I think, unless I'm wrong about that.
Mayor Majewski, then Councillor Overwater, then Councillor Harper.
Actually, my question was answered through that entire process.
Thank you so much. Councillor Harper, okay.
Thank you very much, and I want to express my thanks to yourself and your entire committee for coming back and speaking with council. And I certainly get it, where you talk about the prep time needs to be, if we decide to go that route, it does need to be within our per diem 2.2 and thoroughly explained, because right now under honoraria, under 1.2, it clearly says that that monthly honoraria covers prep time. So if we want to go beyond that, we need to have it thoroughly explained, with it being totally transparent as to what a counselor now or in the future can claim for prep time. And honestly, it's covered under 1.2, but if we want to go further, we need to explain it. And I also appreciate the fact that you do want council of today and in the future to be very transparent. And I don't have a problem with putting quarterly reports on our website to show our citizens our quarterly reports. I don't have that problem whatsoever. And it was a surprise to me to hear that we have gone over budget as a council in the whole, because we've always been assured that where some items may have gone over budget, the whole entire budget was within budget or below budget. And I've always had assurance that we've always been either met budget or were below budget over all the last 14 years I've been here. So that was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I think it's going to be very, very difficult to monitor and to try and figure out what a prep time is. So, I mean, I know we had quite an extensive conversation on that, and I think we pride ourselves on being transparent as to what we charge for our per diems. So I can see us not going ahead with a prep time, because I think it can be something that might take me 2 hours, might take somebody else a half hour. So to read the same agenda and whatever. So I'm saying I don't think that should be in there. But again, I think we have been very transparent, and if we've gone over budget, well then I think I'm a little upset with administration by not telling us that. And I think at the end of the day, we are transparent again, because it is in our financial statements. It states very clearly yearly as to what all the councillors and the mayor have, had for their per diems and whatever other expenses. So I don't think that needs to be quarterly. I think it's very clear in our financials yearly. So I think that is acceptable. I'm not in favor of the prep time at all. I think that can be misconstrued, but I think we should have a serious conversation with our administration if we've been over budget.
Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I think Director Lindeman said we were not over budget. Was that correct?
I said I do need to go back and look at the numbers. I don't have that right
I'm
now.
pretty sure we've all been told that we've never gone over budget, but regardless, I do agree with Councilor Overwater. I think the prep time would be hard to track, and every councillor takes a different tack to how they read their agenda, I'm sure, and I appreciate the fact that your committee listened to some of our concerns with regards to that, and that you're representing here, Mr. Cummings. Thank you very much for your hard work, but I also don't agree about the prep time. I think it'd be very difficult to try to implement that.
I think
Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Bennett.
Sorry, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think my one comment is or that I want council to be conscious of is that we do understand our role in the budgeting process, and in this budget, it is a budget that is administered by us as councillors, as deputy mayors and mayors, and so us being upset with administration would probably send the wrong message. So taking ownership of our space, recognizing that if there is something here, it's not administration that did something wrong, but something that perhaps we as deputy mayors or the mayor himself in his turn could speak to if a concern has been raised.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you very much for your committee's work. Appreciate it very much. And I too agree that preparation time would just be opening a can of worms because, we each do our work differently. So I am in favor of not allowing for prep time.
Mayor Majewska.
Seeing how I was asked to weigh in, I will. I concur with Councillor Thompson. This isn't an administration problem, and as many have mentioned, I don't believe that we have significantly gone over the total budget. And yes, there could be per diems over with subsistence and travel and other line items on our expense sheets that are considerably lower. And in council's defense, it is like throwing darts at a dartboard at the beginning of the year. Especially this year, we had so many. We don't know when we're going to be allowed to go to in-person conferences again. And I'll just say to the general public and olds, not having these in-person conferences has actually really hindered our ability to lobby the provincial government in so many ways and network with other municipalities to further that lobbying. So yes, we'll save money in the expense lines of subsistence and travel, but we lose a lot in these virtual conferences that is invaluable to the town of Olds. So going forward, I'm not sure, I'm of the like that prep time is included in our honoraria and not needed to be billed separately. But for us to further ask administration to break things down quarterly and into every one of the different categories that we have would be quite onerous, I think. We do have the reporting that we're required to under the MGA through our financial statements at the end of the year, where people can see our honoraria, our per diem, and our travel and subsistence claims that we've made. And it's pretty simple to match that up to the budget that we had before and see that the overall number's there. I too would like to thank you for your extra work. We so much appreciate this committee's time and dedication and value your opinion throughout the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Overwater. Any other?
I can make a motion.
Okay, well, that's great then. I just too want to say thank you, Mr. Cummins, for everything that you've done, and I appreciate you taking the time, you and your committee, out of your days to come back and speak with us. I had several questions, but your explanation has pretty much answered any questions I did have. So you want to make a motion, Councillor Overwater? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Yes, I move that we thank the Citizens Committee. Is this really vibrating? No. I thank the Citizens Committee and accept for information, and it will be brought back to a regular council meeting for a decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Seeing Councillor Thompson?
Perhaps if there is some research we could do on that policy 2.2, and the 1.2 and the 2.2 as mentioned, as to whether there's another practice somewhere else that we could adopt?
We actually did an extensive research when we redid the policy, I believe, and I don't know, Mr. Merritt, if there's something else.
We rely on the ad hoc committees to basically come and review the items from other municipalities to do it. But this policy went through a thorough review in the past 4 years in regards to a council ad hoc committee that was formed to make adjustments to the policy. I'm very comfortable that the policy was set based on norms that are in other municipalities. The discussion on honoraria was to basically include preparation time due to the nature of the variety of other events and meetings, that there was a decision that it would be time span that would take for various meetings to take place. So if it was a 2 to 4 hour meeting, there was a set dollar amount. And again, that was reviewed by other committees to come up with these general numbers. So these were not just picked out of a hat, and that's the problem with having once every 4 year discussions. There's a lot of history to how this got evolved and developed, and there has been a fair amount. So I have no concern with any of the recommendations that have been made, but it wasn't done in a vacuum, these policies and the numbers that came about, so to speak.
Thank you. Any further comments? There's a motion on the floor. All right, seeing none, I will call the question then. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you again very much, Mr. Cummins, and please pass on our thanks and appreciation to your committee members. All right then, moving along, we will now have a report from RCMP Detachment Staff Sergeant Jim McDonald. And Councillor Bennett, I believe you have to leave. Okay, thank you.
Sadly, it's soon to be Mr. McDonald, which I don't know if we can indicate here, but I'm going to personally thank you for your service as you are retiring. So sorry to interrupt, Deputy Mayor, but.
Thank you very much. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors, and town administration, thank you again for the opportunity to present the third quarter stats for 2020. This will be my final presentation of statistics for ever.
That's why you'll be Mr. McDonald soon.
That's right.
So I've presented you these statistics. The statistics I'm presenting are the stats for the town of Olds. They don't reflect the provincial side of our detachment, although sometimes I will make some references to it, but I'll try to make that very clear. I'm going to be highlighting the 2020 third quarter statistics and referencing that to the quarter from this time last year. I've also provided you with the statistics for the year-to-date from 2019 and 2020. I won't be making reference to those, but I have provided to you for your information. If you have any questions on the year-to-date, certainly feel free to bring them up. I'm first going to speak to you on the persons crimes. As I've reported since I arrived here 2.5 years ago, a little more, persons crimes is certainly an area that we don't have too many problems with in the town of Olds. And I'm very happy to report that, and that has stayed consistent. And even more so, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom middle, even our persons crimes, which our numbers are already very low, are 40% lower this particular quarter than they were this time last year. So going down the list, homicides, we've had no homicides in 2020 or 2019, and the same holds true for this quarter for robberies. Now, we have had one robbery this year. I spoke about that at the last quarterly meeting with the incident at the McDonald's, the attempted robbery there. Sexual assaults, we had 4 this quarter last year. We've had none, which I'm happy to report for this quarter. Assaults, we've had a reduction in the number of reported assaults as well, going from 17 last year to 12 this quarter this year. No kidnapping last year or this year, and the same with extortion. Harassment complaints have dropped. We haven't had a lot last year or this year, but dropped from 6 to 4 complaints of harassment. Sometimes those are in relation to disputes between neighbors or businesses, and quite often they're actually in relation to domestic violence, spousal abuse type scenarios as well. So total reported persons crimes for this quarter, 25 reported incidents. That's down from 42 this time last year. So as I said, a 40% reduction in persons crimes, which are typically quite low as it is. Property crimes, certainly the area of interest in and around Olds and the whole province for that matter. Looking at break-and-enters, we've had a small reduction in the number of break-and-enters from 13 this time last year down to 10 for this quarter, where we saw the significant reduction, same as I reported last quarter, big reduction in the theft of motor vehicles. Last year, this time, we had 38, and we're down to almost a quarter of that number to 10 during this quarter, quarter 3. Two thefts of items of value over $5,000. So we don't have many large-scale thefts in this town, which is good. We do have one of our more common offenses is the thefts of items under a value of $5,000. So these can be attributed to shoplifting, often a good portion of these thefts from motor vehicles, as well as thefts from people's properties out in the yard, for example. So we've gone from 79, which I'm happy to report, down to 38, so a 52% reduction in the theft, minor theft we would call it, although some of those items can be just under $5,000. So to call it minor theft is a little bit inaccurate depending on the value, but for the most of the thefts that we have, they're smaller value items, and thefts from motor vehicles, change items, GPSs, that type of thing. Possession of stolen property, our incidents have gone down from 12 reported incidents to 3. As I've mentioned before, that's not always a good thing when we have a reduction in possession of stolen property offenses, because when we have a large number of that particular occurrence, it's often because of the work where police officers are pulling over or apprehending people in stolen vehicles or in possession of stolen property. So sometimes when that number is higher, it's actually good. We've had, because we've had less people on the roads and less crime coming into the community, that's also reflected in the reduction of the possession of stolen property statistics. Frauds, although I'm sure you're probably all still getting the odd phone call about us coming to arrest you because you haven't paid your taxes, or there's issues with the CRB or the CRA are looking for you. Although those calls are still coming in, with the reduction in the number of reported frauds, I'm hoping that less and less people are actually responding to that, although even with 11 during this quarter, we've had some people lose sometimes substantial amounts of money to the fraudsters who are very convincing in what they're actually trying to get from people, often through providing their Visa number, going out buying the Google Play and other gift cards and providing that information either over the phone or over the internet. So that still is happening. Arsons, as Fire Chief Andrew indicated, the 2 arsons, we had none this quarter last year. We're up to 2. Those appear to be related, and I would say are related to the arsons that we had earlier in this period of the year and late last year. We're working with the fire department. We continue to work with the fire department as well as a number of outside support resources to try to apprehend the person or persons that are responsible for committing these fires. So some of these techniques that we're actively engaged in are both traditional investigative methods as well as some covert methods as well, utilizing other support services through the RCMP. Mischief, or property crime, or interference with the lawful enjoyment of property, that's down a little bit, from 60 down to 50, so 17% reduction. Again, with the fewer crime trends, that makes sense that we're getting fewer calls of people on property, but it's still happening, and it's actually good when we do get those calls of people who are looking in car doors, going into people's yards to make sure that we can get there and try to apprehend them when we can. So the great news for this quarter is that looking at the 233 occurrences this time last year, it's dropped to 126 occurrences. So that's a 46% reduction in property crime, which is always good news to report. That is consistent with what I told you on the last quarterly report meeting. That's a combination of the hard work that's being done by the detachment and our neighboring detachments. We've been working together on a lot of files in apprehending some of our more key local prolific offenders. And when we get a few of those prolific offenders, that makes a big dent in the local crimes in our communities. And the other partner in crime that we have, the unlikely and unusual partner in crime, is actually the pandemic and COVID. If there's any silver lining to it, and there's not very many silver linings to it, it certainly has affected our call volumes and the type of crimes that we've had here. But for unfortunate reasons, when there's not as many vehicles that come into town, either for school or for business, there's not as many vehicles to steal. So it's a bit of a pro versus con, but certainly as far as crime statistics, it has helped us a little bit. Looking at other criminal code offenses, offensive weapons. So when people are typically found in possession of offensive weapons, or they're in possession of weapons that they shouldn't have, either dangerous to the public peace or they're not authorized to be in possession of those weapons. That's what's reflected in those statistics. So those numbers are very low, 2 this time last year and up to 3 this quarter. So again, very low. Disturbing the peace, anything from loud parties to people walking home from the bar, yelling and making noise. That's pretty consistent with 14 last year to this year. And the same with our other criminal code offenses, which are that big book of offenses that could be any number of things, but not the common offenses that we typically deal with. Our fail to comply and other breaches, we've increased by 76%, so our number for 2019 was 34, up to 60 in the second quarter, just indicating we have been more active in apprehending those people who are breaching their conditions, that are out when they're supposed to be in during their curfew, or perhaps drinking alcohol when they're not supposed to be drinking. So we're apprehending those people and making them accountable for what they're not supposed to be doing. So our total other criminal code, 56 last year up to 83 this year, so an increase of 48%. But again, looking at those numbers, those are not large numbers to start with, and a big portion of that has to do with the increase in the failed to comply and breach charges. Drug offenses for this quarter. So drug production, we've had no reports of drug production or drug production investigations. Drug possession, we've had 2 this time last year, and it's the same this time with 2 drug possession charges. And again, those are more reflective of the harder drugs, the harder illicit drugs. And usually when, in this area, if we are finding harder drugs on people, it's quite commonly meth. Some other communities, we see more fentanyl. We don't deal, obviously, with possession of cannabis like we used to, so that's not reflected in these numbers, so those go down. But certainly, methamphetamines is something that we see, particularly when we arrest people in stolen vehicles. They typically have a little bit of it in their pockets. 1 drug trafficking charge or investigation in this quarter, 1 more than we had last year. And other drugs could be any other number of drug activities, and we've had none for this quarter. So total of drugs, 3 this time last year, and 3 for this quarter. Motor vehicle collisions also dropped this quarter, and as the fire chief mentioned, that has a lot to do with people are just not out on the roads as much anymore. So fatalities, I'm pleased to say that Olds is not a place where there are a lot of fatalities, so that we've had none so far this year, and hopefully that continues to be the trend. Injury motor vehicle collisions, we don't have many serious injuries serious collisions where it results in injuries. We had 7 this time last year, down to 6. Those are both very low numbers. Property damage, which is where the value is over 5,000, which is pretty much any fender bender or any collision, almost in half, down from 40 this time last year to 22 for this quarter, so a 45% reduction in the most common collisions that we have. And the value, collisions where the value is under $2,000, what we call the non-reportable collisions, down from 5 down to 3. So very few non-reportable collisions that people don't have to report, but sometimes they do for insurance purposes or other reasons. So our total collisions dropped from 52 this time last year to 31 for this quarter. So that's really approximately 1 collision every 3 days, which is a very reasonable number for a community of this size. Looking at our other common police activities, false alarms, significant drop from this quarter last year, 38 down to 10, so 74% decrease. False alarms also decreased from 20 down to 11. Suspicious persons and vehicles, about the same, 32 last year, 31 this year. That's a number where I like to always see that number higher, actually, because the more people that are calling in on suspicious vehicles and activities and persons, that means that's more opportunities for us to go out and find out whether, okay, there's a reasonable excuse for this, or this is something that is founded in crime, I guess, where we can potentially apprehend somebody doing something wrong. Missing persons complaints, 2 last year, up to 5 this quarter. Again, not something that we deal with often, and they're typically found within a few hours of them being reported. So it's more a concern for their welfare. They haven't heard from somebody, might be an overdue traveler, but we don't have an issue with missing persons in the detachment. Spousal abuse, this might not come as a big surprise to people with the pandemic and mental health issues and the stresses that people are facing right now that are spousal abuse, and it says spousal abuse, that's the term that's used in our statistics. It's more spousal or domestic situations. It doesn't always necessarily mean that there's violence involved. It could be just a custody conflict over the children. You know, people are not handing over the children when they're supposed to. So it is more spousal issues, but we've gone up from 21 incidents to 39, so almost doubled. So an 86% increase, and that certainly is attributed to the things that are happening with the pandemic and the stresses in people's lives, jobs losses, the unknown, a number of factors. Mental health, we saw a small increase, 19 to 25 calls of people in need of mental health support through the police. What's not reported here is our well-being checks. We also do well-being checks, and that is, although tied into mental health, it's not reflected in our statistics, but we also do well-being checks, and that's those calls for service where people want us to go check on somebody because they haven't heard from them in a little while, or they've been down or suffering maybe some emotional stress. That went from 22 this time last year to 62 requests for us to do well-being checks, which also makes sense considering the stress that people are under and the lack of visitation that sometimes happens with families and friends now. So looking at some Q3 notables, like last quarter, I'm very happy to report that municipal property crime continues to be the lowest that it's been in at least 5 years, and perhaps a little bit more. And the same trend we're seeing in the rural area, that it's also the lowest rate in over 5 years, down 32% in our rural detachment area. Over the summer, we saw things open up a little bit from the pandemic, and we're moving a little bit more into that second wave now, but it was nice to have a little bit of a reprieve this summer, and that allowed us to increase our public engagement a little bit over the summer months. So we, in conjunction with municipal enforcement and the fire department, we did the positive ticketing program in partnership with Circle K and giving out coupons to get the Frosters. So that was a great event, and it certainly has been a big hit with kids around town, and certainly lots of those tickets have been given out in the school zones this year. Children have been behaving themselves and wearing helmets and properly crossing the crosswalks. We also partnered with fire department and municipal enforcement to build the Olds Elementary School playground. We were there for 2 days ourselves and with Victim Services and Fire Department and Municipal Enforcement and some others, and that was a great experience. I thought, well, this will be great PR and great to be able to help out, but then when I got there, I realized this is actually, we're building a playground, like from the ground up. Like, I came out with blisters on my hands, but but it was a great experience, and we got some great photographs and had a lot of laughs, so that was fantastic to be able to take part in that. We had the license plate safety screw event, so an anti-theft event that took place in, it started in Olds and then it spread out to Sundre and Didsbury areas as well. And that was led by Constable Renee Dow and in partnership with Victim Services, so a lot of discussion on how people can protect their, not only their license plate, but their property, and hopefully reduce auto theft in the community and the other communities. Changing a little bit of the ways that we've been doing our work, where normally we do presentations in person. Certainly we've been doing those presentations more often through Zoom, or very small group presentations. So they picked up over this quarter as well. And even modified Canada Day activities. Of course, we didn't have the parade, we didn't have those activities, but myself and the fire department and Sparky and Safety Bear, we went out and tried to bring the events to just pockets of people, and that turned out to be a great event. And even Sparky and Safety Bear crashed a wedding that was happening at Centennial Park, so made for some great photographs for that wedding. Traffic enforcement normalized a little bit more and picked up as the summer months continued, and we started engaging the public a little bit more in that way. So during this quarter, we had 10 traffic safety projects, mostly related to speed and distracted driving. 10 impaired drivers were charged in the town of Olds alone, which is too high a number for sure. 38 drivers have been charged with impaired driving in total this year. And looking at the crime reduction unit, as I've said before, it's great to be able to have that unit to support our operations here, and they've been quite active in Olds during this quarter. They brought their bait technology with them to the town, and just to speak very briefly about that, the RCMP does employ bait technology. That's bait equipment, bait vehicles, and the purpose of that is basically to get stolen. That is to get stolen, and we have the technology available to apprehend those people that are taking those devices. So we've had some success through the crime reduction unit bringing that technology to Olds. We brought it here ourselves in the past as well, but they have a cache of equipment that we don't have locally, so it's great when they can come up and help us with that. They've also been targeting some of our prolific offenders. The last one that just a couple weeks ago, our 3 detachment areas that someone has caused a problem for our 3 detachment areas, including and Innisfail as well, so Old Sundre, Innisfail, and Didsbury, and we've been busy trying to track this person down, get them in custody. Unsuccessfully, sometimes in our own detachment areas, but with the help of the techniques that the crime reduction unit can employ, they were actually able to track this person and arrest them in a southeast Walmart in the city of Calgary. So it doesn't matter where they're arrested, as long as they're arrested. And they've certainly been available when we do see stolen vehicles. They will set up surveillance and try to surveil the stolen vehicles, and when we can work in conjunction with them to get that person safely into custody. So a lot of work that we appreciate from the crime reduction unit this year, or sorry, this quarter. Any questions?
There's questions specifically on this presentation that they should be asked now. I do want to go under section 17 later to have a further discussion on statistics.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Merritt. Questions, Councillor Harper and then Councillor Overwater. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I'm very happy to hear that and see that our crime statistics for both the urban and rural area have gone down quite significantly. What does concern me is the mental health aspects of the reporting that's been ongoing, and it's not just for our community but across the nation. And I know that Deputy Mayor Blatz and myself attended a seminar, it would be a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now, or a year ago, at AUMA in reference to how police departments are having to take a more holistic approach and bring in the social service part of their part of the equation into their detachment or police area. And I'm just wondering how the local detachment is able to do that, bring in the social service aspect, the mental health aspect into the local detachment.
Well, we do work in partnership with the local agencies, the social agencies that are in town, certainly where we see that there are problems or problems that are increasing where to the point where it's outside of the police's hands, I guess, the police officer's hands to be able to successfully resolve certain problems. In my last detachment in Grand Prairie, we actually had what was called the PAC team, and that was the police in crisis team. And that was with two teams, but both comprised of the same breakdown of one police officer and one mental health nurse. And that was very effective because sometimes the uniform can have a positive effect on people, sometimes it can have a negative effect on people. It's important that because mental health calls and sometimes mental health issues does result in aggressive behavior, sometimes violence. It's important for us to be there on hand, but it's great when you have a team like that where there's a police officer and a mental health nurse to be able to handle the problem, and one can pick up the ball wherever it's more important. The reason I'm bringing this up is that is something that's being explored for rural areas and smaller communities now as well. I think that's a great idea, and it's not going to happen while I'm here, but it is being explored right now as a possibility, and I don't know how that's going to work, but it was very effective in Grand Prairie. I know Red Deer has the same type of thing. Often, small detachments don't have the resources available to have a team like that right here, nor necessarily the work to be able to support that on a full-time basis. But when you can do it for a region and have that a mental health nurse who has access to other resources that the police don't always have that same connection or the same easy access, that's fantastic. And I hope that's one way that we are moving forward to be able to better deal with some of these mental health issues, because although police officers have some training in dealing with mental health issues, it's not the same training or experience that other professionals in those social agencies or mental health nurses have, of course.
Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. We compare our number of police officers that we have here to other communities of similar size, so per capita and whatever. So how do we compare crime-wise with those same communities? Are we down? Are we up?
Actually, I can answer that question for you, because there's a number of different ways that crime is measured, and it can be based on the number of criminal code incidents per officer that's investigated every year. So that's one of the indicators of how busy each officer is in a detachment. But one of the better ways of measuring that is through the Crime Severity Index. And so actually it was just this past week that I received the numbers for the Crime Severity Index, and I can see where we were last year compared to other detachments. I actually brought that information with me. So for 2019, the Crime Severity Index for the town of Olds was 106. And just to clarify, and I know that I explained this, I think it was this time last year, but the Crime Severity Index looks at not just the number of crimes that are happening, but the nature of those crimes and the frequency of those crimes. So it's just not the number of break-and-enters that happen. Let's see how busy or serious the crime is in the community. It puts a weight to the types of crimes. So obviously an aggravated assault is going to carry more weight as far as crime severity than the theft from a vehicle, that type of thing. So that's what it looks at, is the amount of crime and the severity of crime in a community. So for Olds, our number was 102, was our crime severity index in 2019. And the average was 119. So we're lower than, that's for the average for the province of Alberta. Now there are 19 communities in similar size to Olds, between that 5 and 10,000, and the average of those is about 150. I looked at that to see, okay, where do we stack up with some of those other communities? So the Crime Severity Index, on average, is about 150 of the 19 comparable communities to Olds. So certainly there's some more serious crimes that are happening in some of those communities, less in others. Now, if you are looking, just because we were speaking about the on the provincial side of things as well, the crime severity index for our provincial side of our detachment is 138, so it's a little bit higher. Our call volume is lower, it's about half. Call volume is lower, but the seriousness of those crimes is a little bit higher. In that same demographic, for a detachment about that same size, it's the crime severity index actually goes up to about 180 for the average. So in both cases, on our municipal and rural detachments, when I look at these numbers, that reflects what I already know, that overall Olds is quite a safe community. This area is a safe community. We do have property crime, certainly property crime issues, but overall those numbers reflect that we are in a safe community.
Councillor Ryan and then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I just have a question with regards to the impaired driving charges. So of that 38 drivers charged this year, was that totally in Olds as well?
No, that's the total for our detachment area.
Okay, and is that typically an average number? Like, is that around the same as in 2019?
It has gone up a little higher over the years, and I don't have a reason for it. I don't know if that's reflected in what's happening with the pandemic, that people are relying more on alcohol and still getting behind the wheel. I mean, it is certainly reflective that people are still, despite all the education that's out there, what people know about impaired driving, that people are still making poor decisions. You know, certainly getting out there and apprehending the impaired drivers, that's important, but the legislation in the province is also changing, and you're going to see changes to the way that impaired drivers are dealt with. I won't get into too much of that right now. I'm not a spokesperson for that, but it actually, it's following a little bit of the method that is in British Columbia, and that's been there for years. Police officers happy with the change, public's going to be happy with the change, I think. It doesn't result in as many charges being laid and going through the criminal courts, but it deals with a lot of sanctions and consequences for impaired drivers that should be quite effective.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz, and thank you, Staff Sergeant McDonald. We appreciate your contribution to making our community the safer place that it is, and it's delightful to hear that our statistics are better than most communities of our size and scope. I did note that you also spoke to spousal abuse, and as this month is Family Violence Month, I just wanted to recognize that we can all do our part to support our families and our neighbors. Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or concerns? Any questions?
Well, two things from the administration. First of all, I want to thank the good work that Staff Sergeant McDonald has done with the town of Olds, especially the administration. So that's who I speak for, and it's always been a great relationship with you. So we're sorry to see you leaving, and when sometime mid-2021. Secondly, I would like to go into a closed session under Section 17, information disclosure harmful to personal privacy.
Mayor Majewska.
I too, as CAO, speaks on behalf of administration. I am lucky enough and honored enough to speak on behalf of council. And I think there should be some rule that states you're not allowed to retire until you look like you're old enough to retire. So that's going to put you well into the 2030s before you get to retire. Thank you, Staff Sergeant, for your incredible work since the day you got here. Our town was safer, and the statistics prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. And on behalf of council, thank you for our service to our community. And good luck in your retirement, whatever that leads to. I don't think you're young enough to stop working.
No,
but,
not at all.
We'll call you Mr. McDonald next time I see you. Very good. And I'll make the motion to go into closed session.
Okay,
under-
and who's staying in that?
Deputy Mayor, I'd like the executive team to stay for this.
Excellent. So I so move that we move into a closed session under Section 17 with the executive team, administration, and Staff Sergeant McDonald. And
Mr. Andrew?
there we go. Mr. Andrews stays, yes. He is an executive team member.
Trying to sneak out?
Yeah, Marcy.
Point of order, are you going to make a motion to accept
We were going to after we came back out of our in-camera session. Should we do it now? I asked Mr. Merritt, so
Yeah.
sorry. But you would probably, or is that acceptable, Marcy? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Should vote on this motion though to go in camera.
See, I needed notes, I told you that. All right, all in favor of the motion to go in camera? Motion is carried, thank you so much.
At 96.5 CKFM.
I love my country. Hey, this is Taylor Swift. Hey, I'm Carrie Underwood.
Today's best country.
I love my country.
This is Rodney Atkins. Everyone, I'm 96.5.
My country.
CKFM.
When it's on the rocks, it gets me on my feet again. Gets me halfway to okay. Gets me downtown with my friends. When it's shot for shot, it goes right to my head. Yeah, alright, I'm doing fine. It gets me good as I can get. For a minute I was thinking it was getting me close, but by the bottom of the bottle I know what the whiskey won't do is get me strong enough to forget about us. And I've had a few, even 100 proof. No, it can't change the fact that I can't get you back. Oh, it's true, what the whiskey won't do is get me over you.
The first sip will make me smile. My girlfriends do their best. Drinking doubles like I'm single, but I don't feel it yet. When that bourbon hits the ice, I get that old Kentucky high, but only for a moment or two.
'Cause what the whiskey won't do is get me strong enough to forget about us. And I've had a few, even 100 proof. No, it can't change the fact
Whiskey Won't Do, that's Alan Doyle and Jess Moskalook. Also KT Oslin with 80s Ladies. And off the top, 229 with Corey, good afternoon. Mostly cloudy sky right now, Oldson area, and it is 15 degrees on the way to an incredible projected high of 20 this afternoon. And again, it's gorgeous weather. It's sort of hard to imagine that we are going to get back to winter, but you know it's coming. And because of that, we are going to be thinking about snowmobiling. Yes, and the first meeting of the old Snowmobile Club is coming up on Wednesday. That's going to go 7:30 at the Royal Canadian Legion in Olds in the Dieppe room. If you'd like any more information about the meeting itself or about the old Snowmobile Club, you can call Lyle 403-507-9045.
Do you want to work those digits? Like sending your messages via the two-thumb salute? Text us. The CKFM text line is open anytime. Just dial 556-2206 and shoot us a message. The CKFM text line is brought to you by Big Rack Rentals in Olds and Sundre. Whatever the job, Big Rack has quality equipment to help you out, from aerial or scissor lifts to heaters, packers, farming rentals, water pumps, and more. Shop local, rent local with Big Rack Rentals in Olds and Sundre.
We get it. This is MJ.
And Lori at Marlick Insurance. No one ever wants to think about insurance, but it is such a hot topic with the premiums increasing every year.
With our winter weather conditions, those deer on the roads, and thieves stealing our trucks that we are so proud of, these are just a few reasons for the increases.
Even though we cannot control these situations, insurance companies are paying out every day on numerous claims.
At Marlick, we provide great coverage that works for you at our best premiums.
Marlick Insurance, north of the post office in Olds. Find them by phone or online at marlickinsurance.com.
Olds Electric and Lighting. If it's electrical, yeah, they do that. Visit their stock showroom to find your electrical supplies, or let one of their skilled techs help you with your commercial or residential electrical needs. Olds Electric and Lighting, Imperial Way. Yeah, they do that.
I didn't think that these things happened to people like me. I thought that he loved me. I'm the mom of his kids. It wasn't until I was put in contact with the Mountain View Emergency Shelter Society that I realized that I'm not the only one.
If you or someone that you know has been affected by family violence, you can reach us confidentially at 403-586-4765, or you can visit our website, www.mountainviewemergencyshelter.ca, for more information.
The new Canadian Emergency Alert System is a joint effort between broadcasters and governments to keep Canadians informed. 96.5 CKFM and Rock 104 are part of the Canadian Emergency Alert System. When you hear an alert, it's time to act. Learn more at alertready.ca.
All the best country. 96.5 CKFM.
Girl, when I look at you, you look through me like I'm not even there. I'm trying not to give up, to be strong, but I'm afraid to say I'm scared. I can't find the place your heart is hiding. And I'm no quitter, but I'm tired of fighting. Baby, I love you, don't wanna lose you, don't make me let you go. Took such a long time for me to find you, don't make me let you go. Baby, I'm begging please, and I'm down here on my knees. I
music for Gord Bamford. Blake Shelton also in there and Don't Make Me at the top. 2:38 with Corey. Good afternoon. The Rural Alberta Motorcycle Ride for Dad have got their annual general meeting coming up at the Didsbury Museum. That's going to go tomorrow night at 6:30. It's an open meeting, and they're always looking for about Alberta Motorcycle Ride. Make sure to attend the general meeting tomorrow night at 6:30.
Need help with your game? You ask a teammate. Need help getting there safely? You rely on the Jiffy Lube team. Jiffy Lube, keeping you moving.
Jiffy Lube in Olds and Sundre, your only locally owned and operated quick lube.
Radio Player Canada. We've got radio for whatever kind of mood you're in. More than 400 stations all in one app. Download today and get in the mood for whatever. Radio Player Canada, where Canadian radio plays.
Intercon Messaging, your 24-hour call center, providing a wide range of custom-designed solutions for your business. Call 1-866-605-2558 for more information. Intercon Messaging, interconnecting your world.
The blinds you have in your home right now may not be safe for your family, but at Budget Blinds, there are tons of options that aren't just safe, but stylish too. For giving mom a little peace of mind, or for dad to know it's okay to take a nap, again. Or for knowing your cat won't get stuck, also, again. We've got your cordless and motorized window coverings that are not only child safe, but pet safe. Request your free consultation today by calling 888-878-0448 or learn more at budgetblinds.com.
CKLJ 96.5 CKFM believes in being accountable to you, the listener, which is why we participate in the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council. We are committed to upholding the highest standards of broadcast excellence and adhering to the codes of conduct administered by the CBSC. If you have a comment to make about our programming or a concern about something you heard on our station, contact us or visit the CBSC's website, cbsc.ca.
Hometown Radio. That means it's your community and your radio station. Keep it tuned to 96.5 CKFM.
The devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal. He was in a bind because he was way behind and he was willing to make a deal. When he came across this young man sewing on a fiddle and playing it hot, and the devil jumped up on a hickory stump and said, "Boy, let me tell you what. I guess you didn't know it, but I'm a fiddle player too. And if you'd care to take a dare, I'll make a bet with you. Now you played pretty good fiddle, boy, but give the devil his due. I bet a fiddle of gold against your soul, because I think I'm better than you." The boy said, "My name's Johnny, and it might be a sin, but I'll take your bet, and you're gonna regret, because I'm the best as ever been. Johnny, rosin up your bow and play your fiddle hard, cause hell's broke loose in Georgia and the devil deals the cards. And if you win, you get this shiny fiddle made of gold, but if you lose, the devil gets your soul." The devil opened up his case and he said, "I'll start this show," and fire flew from his fingertips as he rosined up his bow. And he pulled the bow across the strings and it made an evil hiss. And then a band of demons joined in and it sounded something like this. When the devil finished, Johnny said, "Well, you're pretty good, old son, but sit down in that chair right there and let me show you how it's done. Fire on the mountain, run, boys, run. The devil's in the house of the rising sun. Chicken in the bread pan, picking out dough. Granny, does your dog bite? No child knows." The devil bowed his head because he knew that he his feet. Johnny said, devil, just come on back if you ever want to try again. Cause I told you once, you son of a gun, I'm the best there's ever been. He played Found a Mountain, Run, Boys, Run. Devil's in the house of the rising sun. The chicken in the bread pan, picking out dough. Granny, when you don't bite, no child knows.
Take me on up to Detroit City. Jails are full, the factory's empty. Mama's crying, young boys dying. Under that red, white, and blue still flying. Drop me off in Baltimore, where every other winter's got a plywood board, where dreams become drugs and guns. The only way out is to shoot or run. Stick that in your country song, yeah. Take that one to number one, yeah. And get the whole world singing along, yeah. Stick that in your country song, yeah. Sing about the man coming back from war, 23 going on 54. He lost a friend inside his hand, baby girl he'll never see again. Stick that in your country song, yeah. Take that one to number one, yeah. Get the whole world singing along, man. Stick that in your country song, yeah. Light the arrow, pull the bow, shoot that fire right through my soul. Hit my pride, fist up high. I wanna feel the rush, I wanna feel alive. Come on, I wanna pound the dash, stomp the gas, drive too fast, rock me hard, stop my heart, and blow the speakers right out of this car. Step down in your country song, yeah. Take that one to number one, yeah. Get the whole world singing along, man. Step down in your country song, yeah. Stick that in your country song. Take that one to number one. I can sing this all night long, yeah. Stick that in your country song, yeah. About the teacher who trying to change a life or two. She'll be rocking out all night with you. Tomorrow she'll be back in a red brick school where kids are climbing off the walls. It's scary walking down the hall. She's on the pay, she's over. Come on, man, shout one out to her. Stick down in your country song. Come on, take that one to number one. Yeah. I get the whole world singing along. Stick that in your country song. Stick that in your country song. Take that one to number one. Yeah. I get the whole world singing along, man. Stick that in your country song. Yeah. Stick that in your country song. Yeah. I get the whole world singing along. Stick that in a country song.
I like country.
I like country music.
They play all my favorite country.
The best country that I don't hear on all the other stations.
That's 96.5 CKFM.
This world is getting fragile. I shake my head in doubt each passing day. So uncertain is the outcome
No matter how the job gets done, somebody pays. Many versions of the truth tossed around like stories do, till I find my mind circling back. All I know is true. There's a full moon over our house on a starlit walk. There's a feeling of completeness when I hear our children talk. My heart can skip a beat still when you look at me. And even though there's trouble out there across some deep and distant sea, by the grace of God I'm strengthened by the love we've made. Baby, you make me brave. There's a simple kind of comfort knowing I can find it here at home. When it's just you and me at night, it's easy to let the day behind us go. In the quiet of those moments, you're lying next to me, is where I find all the courage that I'll ever need. There's a full moon over our house on a starlit walk. There's a feeling of completeness when I hear our children talk. My heart can skip a beat still when you look at me. And even though there's trouble out there across some deep and distant sea, by the grace of God I'm strengthened by the love we've made. Baby, you make me brave. Baby, you make me brave. There's a full moon over our house on a starlit walk. There's a feeling of completeness when I hear our children talk. My heart can skip a beat still when you look at me. And even though there's trouble out there across some deep and distant sea, by the grace of God I'm strengthened by the love we've made. Baby, you make me brave. Baby, you make me brave.
That's a song that he wrote with Sean Hogan called Brave. Also, Eric Church, his latest Stick That in Your Country song, and Charlie Daniels as well. The Devil Went Down to Georgia off the top. 2:52 with Corey. Good afternoon. A news update with Galen on the way in a couple of moments. He's got news and sports. I've got your weather details as well coming up in just a moment. Doc Walker and Alabama on the way next.
The Thanks for Farming Tour is coming to Red Deer November 11th and 12th at Westerner Park. Come and celebrate the ag industry's accomplishments with innovative exhibitors, engaging speakers, and much more. Tickets are on sale now. For more information and to secure your tickets, register at thanksforfarmingtour.com.
Sundry Home Hardware isn't your average hardware store. They can help make home renovations a breeze. Every step of the way, they can help you along. From floors to cabinets, drywall, insulation, everything you need to get the job done. Plus, Sundry Home Hardware offers free delivery to Caroline, Olds, Carstairs, and Water Valley, so you can stay distant but get the job done. For rentals, lumber, home improvement, and building needs, visit Sundry Home Hardware. It's the season of giving. There's no time like the holidays. Get in the Christmas spirit with the Eye Warehouse and the Gift of Sight. Help someone make crystal clear memories this year. Book an eye test during November, and you get one to give to a friend. That's right, you get to give the most accurate test in town for free. Not to mention, spend more and get more. Your $300 purchase gets you a $20 gift card to the Sun Warehouse. $500 gets you $50, $1,000 gets you $120. The Gift of Sight has arrived. Visit the Eye Warehouse today.
Feeding season is here. Weaning or buying feeder calves, Sundry Soil Services can help. With the liquid supplements for cow-calf operations, feedlots, and bale treating. For more info, call Roland at 638-3185. Sundry Soil Services, serving Olds, Sundry, and surrounding area for over 30 years with liquid supplement.
All your country favorites.
96.5 CKFM, serving West Central Alberta. News update.
Now this update from the Canadian Press. It's one last frenetic day for the main candidates in the U.S. presidential campaign. President Donald Trump and Democratic challenger Joe Biden have one last chance to make their pitches before tomorrow's vote. They are attending multiple rallies over the next day. Many Canadians will be watching from socially distanced positions as the results roll in tomorrow from the election. Although many might want to see Donald Trump out of office, Canadians are also aware of the protectionist nature of the Democratic Party. Manitoba might impose a curfew to help contain the spread of COVID-19, as Ontario considers whether to loosen restrictions in some hotspots. She didn't have to wear a black robe or even be in Washington, but Justice Amy Coney Barrett has joined her new colleagues at the U.S. Supreme Court today to hear arguments for the first time. They did it over the phone. From the Canadian Press, I'm Roger Ward.
News is brought to you by Dugan's Farm and Feed Supply. Find everything from footwear to feed, tack to mineral. Dugan's Farm and Feed Supply, locally owned and operated, Main Avenue East, Sundre.
I'm Yale Hartvickson with an information update. Just after 2 p.m. on Saturday, the Olds Fire Department was called to a reported structure fire at 42 Vantage Crescent in Olds. Upon arrival, crews found a working fire in the attached garage portion of a single-family residence. Crews established an offensive attack on the garage and quickly knocked down the forward progress of the fire and contained it to the garage area. Firefighters experienced a small explosion from the garage area shortly after their arrival, which resulted in the windows of the garage being blown out. Extensive overhaul operations were required to ensure that the spread of the fire had not extended into the house and common attic spaces. A total of 16 firefighters responded to the structure fire at 42 Vantage Crescent in Olds in 2 engines. A ladder truck and support unit along with AHS EMS units managed the incident. A single male occupant of the garage at the time of the incident suffered serious burns to undisclosed areas of his body and was treated by AHS EMS and transported to hospital. According to Town of Olds Fire Chief Justin Andrew, the cause of the fire is being investigated further, but preliminary investigation shows that it is accidental in nature. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed a multitude of plans in 2020, and that includes Remembrance Day. This year was to be the 5th annual No Stone Left Alone ceremony, put on as a partnership between IODE and the Royal Canadian Legion in Olds. While the traditional ceremony has been canceled, Imperial Order of the Daughters of the Empire President Diane Powney says they have found a way for local students to still be involved. The high school students will research a veteran. Holy Trinity and Deer Meadow students will be making wreaths. The wreaths will then be placed at the cenotaph. Powney says they're also asking the public to honor Remembrance Day this year however they can.
We're asking the public if they can somehow find a way to acknowledge this day, whether it's placing a flag on their steps or
Thank you, folks. We are now returning to our regular council policy and priorities meeting at 3:05. I would like to move forward with a motion to accept the Olds RCMP Detachment Staff Sergeant Jim McDonald's report for information, please. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. I move that we accept Sergeant Jim McDonald on his last report for the third quarter as information.
Thank you so much. All in favor? Motion is carried. Moving along now, we will go, and I believe that we have Mr. Larry Wright is going to present to...
No, I believe...
Oh, no, sorry, Scott. Director Chant.
Director Chant has a chance to give an update.
So my apologies. Yes.
Thank you through the chair. So I'll keep mine fairly short, seeing as though we've had lots of presentations today. So part of that is first piece is our operations building. I know that that's the one that's going to be every month for the next quite a few months here. That is exciting, and everybody's top of everybody's mind. So the project is progressing along well. I did want to note that did come up last council meeting of and you know, how many local businesses are benefiting from this project, and so we did get an updated list. And so currently, right now, working on that project, there are 13 local companies that are benefiting from this project. And when I do say local, I am referring to Didsbury, Sundre, and Olds. There is other companies that are working on there that are from Red Deer, but when I talk about local, that is in our local geographic area. So everything from landscaping, the carpenters are out there right now that are putting up the frame and the structure are from Sundre. They'll be doing the structure and all the finishing work and drywall and things like that. All of the windows and glass are coming out of Olds. So there's a window, a glass company in town that's doing that. Same as all our gravel to date is coming from a local gravel pit just west of Olds. So, you know, it's good to see that, and it was nice to get an updated list, even from the, you know, right down to the porta potties being, you know, supplied and cleaned by a local company. So, you know, we'll get down to that level of detail. So that was kind of, you know, just for public is that, you know, right now there's quite a lot of local people doing that. It's coming along quite well. You will see in the next couple of weeks a kind of a next explosion of the building as they're waiting for some beams and things like that. So hopefully by mid-month you'll see the second story go on the admin part along with the rafters, along with the actual steel frame of the shop area as well. So coming along just nicely. They're still right now still saying that completion date is still the end of February. So looking forward to that. On to the splash park. I know it's kind of crazy to talk about splash parks when we're in fall and going into winter, but some of the pieces on that, there was a couple of little minor repairs that were done. There was a leaking valve that we were able to work with all summer long, and with the shutdown, even though it wasn't a major repair, but Peter was able to make that repair, like to keep it running without having to shut it down to put the valve in, but with the shutdown was able to put that valve in, so it's one less thing we have to worry about in the spring. The other piece on that one is we've all experienced that power interruption during the summer that knocked out some businesses and things like that. So we're looking into that, what that's going to take, and have that put in prior to spring startup. So it does protect our infrastructure in that manner, in that aspect. Signage, wayfinding signage. You've probably noticed that there's been a little bit of color added to the cement work now in defining the grooves there for our wayfinding look. They're still on target for sometime in November to actually start setting the actual signage on top. So all being manufactured off-site, and they'll just come in and they'll be able to plunk it down, bolt it up, things like that. You may wonder why there's a piece of conduit that's sticking up out of the concrete. That is for future. So it was easier to put the conduit in the concrete now and have it for future if we ever get power to some of those signs and need to illuminate them and things like that. Was pre-planning, put the conduit in now so it was there for future use. So if you ever wondered why that piece of conduit was there. Stuff like that. A road program, basically, on all intents and purposes, I think it reported last month, is completed. There was actually a crosswalk placed down on the end of Main Street and 54th this weekend, which was one of the final touches. So we're pretty much wrapped up for that for this year in that aspect. Another piece I did want to add on to our agenda while I had the floor, and the chair hasn't cut me off yet, is we did have an email from Chinook's Edge School Division that came in late last week. I haven't had that. So basically the direction from the school board, and so they've had this in consultation with the Catholic School Division as well as the public school board. Starting December 1st, buses will be activating all necessary lights while at stops in town. So this is the red flashing lights with the stop paddle will come out at every single stop that they make inside the town limits. That is consistent with all of their rule stops, and this is now school board wide, not just Olds or anything like that. It's a direction from the school board that this is basically hopefully province-wide, but definitely through Chinook's Edge School Division, anywhere they have buses. So very important for the public is that starting December 1st, you will start seeing buses at these stop sites, bus stops, I guess they are, with the stop paddles out with the reflective lights going. So we'll be doing some communication, so my hint to our communications lady and to Director Wagstaff to have the social media stuff done is that we'll need to do a bunch of did you knows on, did you know when that stop sign's out, you need to stop. That is pretty much my report.
Thank you, Director Chant. We will start with Councillor Overwater, then Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy
Councillor
Mayor
Thompson.
Blatz. Okay, I guess my question is, I mean, I'm thankful, I'm happy they're doing this. I think this is wonderful. However, I would kind of like to know what was there a major incident that all of a sudden they have changed their mind, because they were very adamant before. So I mean, I don't need a big long explanation, but I don't know why all of a sudden, poof, they're changing it when before they were so adamant that they wouldn't change it.
They didn't provide any of that information, that there had been an incident or near misses, other than that at a board direction, this is being handed down.
So again, this will be a big education, again, for our residents, because now we've kept telling them, okay, there's no stop flappers or lights, and now there's going to be the stop flapper and the lights. So that will be a big education piece, correct? In the social media, our utilities, the newspaper, whatever else you want to put it in.
That's correct, and that's why they've given us to basically December 1st. Instead of implementing this like immediately, they're going to, gave us a month to start having that helping out with that campaign.
Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Through to Scott Chant. I was wondering, so this, just for clarity, so this is both school boards, or, and, I understand us communicating this information out, but shouldn't they be doing it as well?
Yes, they are going to do it as well, but we said we, can assist with our, newspaper ads and through our social media. But yeah, they'll help work on that as well. And yes, it is both school divisions. There is 2 Catholic buses that are running throughout the town, and they're all on board. So they've connected with each other first before they let the municipality know what was going on.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Through the Deputy Mayor to Director Chant. Director Chant, you spoke about the Operations Center, and every month you've been good at providing a report on some of these major capital projects. What is being done to ensure that the Operations Center is being built on budget and to timelines?
On budget and timelines, basically timelines, I'm going to start with the second part first. Timelines is really dependent on when they can get information, when they can get materials. As we've heard through even our fire chief, is that sometimes there's been delays on materials. So that will be our biggest holdup, is if it does get extended, it will be basically because a product can't be secured in a timely manner. So far, they haven't ran into that yet. Most companies were given heads up plenty well in advance to have all of that stuff. So they have a schedule. We have bi-weekly meetings that we're tracked. But that's not the only communication. There's basically daily communication through a project manager that we have. That is daily conversations with their project lead and our project manager and with us, that anything that comes up is vetted, up and down the chain in a timely manner. Everything from request to, they call them requests for information. Does the town want the light switch to go up, turned on, or down to turn off? Those can get answered like very quickly, and that doesn't delay them. Same as the project cost is with a third-party project manager for us, is that's their role, is to make sure that all billing that comes through them on a monthly basis is valid. And if there is a change, why is there a change? And is it there's checks and balances that way. So we're very confident that they're doing a great job at that. Is if they ask for something extra, why? And they will go back and look under the contract and say, this here, it was identified here, so sorry, you don't get paid. So we're very confident that they'll keep us well on track.
Thank you, and just a comment to go further with that, I'm quite sure that our Director of Finance will be watching that budget very closely, and there's no doubt in my mind. I do have one comment I'd like to make as well. Going back to all of our did you knows and our media coverage, perhaps it might be a good idea for our communications coordinator to maybe work with the mayor and have something come out as a report from him as well, particularly on the Ops Center. I happen to notice that the town of Didsbury has done a very good job with their arena weekly progress reports, and I think that's very good information. So I'd like to see that kind of project work together, perhaps. I don't want to overburden anybody or put extra work on, but I think the more communication that we can provide to our citizens, the better we are. So just a suggestion I wanted to make. But I do have a question in regards to the vandalism at the Splash Park. Have we heard anything yet?
I will turn that over to our Director Wagstaff. He's nodding his head.
The RCMP have had a number of leads given to them because of the promotion that occurred in the media. And as of this morning, it's my understanding that they have identified a couple of individuals, and they will be pursuing those avenues.
Thank you. Councillor Overwater, or Councillor Harper first, and then Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Director Wagstaff, I just want to know how much damage was actually done to the Splash Park as a result of the vandalism, and can some of those parts be replaced?
It will be. So because it was struck with a baseball bat, we will be replacing the entire head because the damage that may have been done to that spray piece, that replacement piece is just over $5,000 to be replaced. And we will be working with the RCMP on how that can be repaid in the process. The first step is that they will be working through the system, their two individuals that they've identified.
Councillor Overwater.
Thank you. One more piece to the Ops Center to make sure that in the news that we have several local businesses that are working there. It's not like we're hiring out of Calgary or Red Deer or whatever. Regarding the Splash Park, is that insurable? Do we have insurance that would cover that or not? Oh, I'm not liking the look on your face.
We'll go around the horn to Director Linderman when it's an insurance question.
Yes, the Splash Park is insured, and we have submitted a claim on it already.
Thank you. Is there any, Councillor Harper. Councillor Ryan. I'm sorry, I saw you before I saw her, so I'm not. My apologies if I got it wrong.
Thank you. Not a problem. Going back to the wayfinding signage, just in case there's a number of citizens who've missed the concrete stands that are out there, how many wayfinding signs are we hoping to install before the end of 2020? And just a recognition that this is a long-term project and that it's been budgeted for over the years, and how much was through grants?
I'll cover the grant part. So the entire project is being funded through MSI.
Thank you, and that's, I was going to make that comment as well, just to reassure our citizens that it is covered by our MSI grant funding. Councillor Ryan? Well, how many signs?
11 signs will be installed by the end of 2020. They've already been poured.
Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I just have one question, and that was probably through to Director Wagstaff. There was also the vandalism in the Centennial Park, and there were lights there that were damaged. Is that under insurance coverage as well, or through some other way? Maybe Director Lindeman could tell that too.
So no, the lights were not covered through insurance. They are so minimal that it isn't worth to insure that or to submit a claim on it.
Thank you. Any further questions of Director Chant? Seeing none, then I will call for a motion to accept his report for information. Mayor Majewska?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to move that we accept the operations and capital project update from the Director of Operations for information.
Thank you. Any further comments? All right, seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Now we will move along to our Economic Development Secretariat report from Mr. Larry Wright. And Mr. Mayor, you might want to start with an introduction.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Oh.
Pardon me, Deputy Mayor, if you'd like, I'd like to recuse myself on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I would like to introduce Mr. Larry Wright to basically give the first of many presentations on the Olds Economic Development Secretariat. This secretariat has been up and running for over a year now. It certainly was quite prevalent during the first wave in regards to the COVID-19, when we created a task force to basically set up task force on business recovery. That was very useful and helpful as businesses were looking for information, getting information, and looking for programming, and which we were able to deliver through to from the Secretariat. With that, I would like for Larry to give an overview of the Secretariat and to any projects that it's currently working on. So with that, Mr. Wright, please step up to the podium.
Okay, and I see we're practicing safe speaking. Anyway, thanks very much, Mayor, Deputy Mayor Blatz, Chairperson, members of Council, and the Executive. This is our lead-off benchmarking process to prepare reports on a quarterly basis for our Council on Economic Development, the Economic Development Secretariat, and anything else you may want to choose to ask or ask us to follow up on. And that, if we go back to, thank you, the time period in the last July and August of 2019, we actually managed to get together our terms of reference and move forward, and with some interesting topics and times and that. And one of the things that we had to do was have our committee memberships identified. One of the problems we ran into right away is we were concerned about succession planning. And that has always proved to be difficult with any kind of not-for-profits. And that turned out to be the case later on, and I'm not going to go into those details, obviously, for obvious reasons. And that, in any case, We got the secretariat underway. Director Chant here, we've leaned heavily on Scott to provide detailed information on operations, development, and planning, and we've developed the agenda topics based around information and communication. Any case, we can move ahead to slide 2. That'd be great. Okay, there we go. One of the things we try to maintain and focus our economic development work on is basically contained in your strategic areas of focus as prepared and put together by the town council and exec and Kelly in that area. We focused on, obviously, the development activities based on the OI mandate report. We developed the Economic Development Secretariat based on those characteristics. And then we focused on municipal development plans and the status of that, and used that in several episodes and requests for information. Earlier this year, and in September 14th, we completed the submission through the committees on economic development policy, and we're moving forward on plans and opportunities. We're waiting with bated breath on all the IDP information. Numerous requests that we've fielded in the last 3 months. We've used the IDP public information process in that, and it is a key point of interest for many projects. One of the ones that we had responded to with Access Prosperity involved site areas up to 300 acres, and order of magnitude was 600 million. And we know without that IDP, it just wouldn't be possible to pull that off, or even get to the next level layers of the government. Excuse me. We continue to work with Fortis as a key concern for all of our economic development is energy, and that I think will go on for a number of years, as we found out doing the marijuana processes that major projects are going to require anywhere from 20 to 40 megawatts of energy as they advance, and our substation just doesn't meet that. We know from our discussions with Fortis, it's $70 million for expansion of the substation, but they don't want to move forward unless we have commitment by investors and developers. So chicken and egg, there you go. Brownfield redevelopment, we've mapped in our core area all our brownfield sites, whether they've been renewed or need renewal, in conjunction with empty storefronts and turnover of longer-term properties that have maybe don't have succession plans because our long-term business owners are retiring. We provided that to our secretariat members, and that would still fit in with the old umbrella for a community redevelopment levy. That's all changed now due to the province. I think it was, Bill 21 and Bill 7 were the two items that affected that. But we have the information, we benchmark, and we're updating that as we go. Wetlands assessment, that's a continuing problem. If you look at southeast industrial lands there's a huge tract of wetlands. Yeah, it's quite expensive under Alberta environments, rules and regulations. I think, Scott, what do they want, around 30,000 an acre, the province, for deferring of the land in any major development. That's a very expensive process and very detrimental to moving ahead with development. Our stats that we use in terms of CAPE and all of our data around our basic summary and community profile. We badly need a municipal census, because that's one of the questions we're getting constantly is, what is our growth in the 5 years, and why is your population at that level? And we had to add in additional information on the last 10 years, specific areas of growth to infill, even though we're locked into using that basic data from past census. Looking forward to that. Part of our process here with expansion of the secretariat and the work and support for, say, Director Wagstaff's area and tourism in general. We're working at bits and pieces. We invited Director Wagstaff in to sit in on our meetings with Secretariat to go through details and understand what the issues may be all around. And that, and we thank you and appreciate Director Wagstaff's wisdom and some insight and imagination there. Appreciate that. Kelly and the asset management data and our finance group there.
Larry, just if you could use last names or positions, because not everybody will understand who Kelly is.
Okay, yeah. Strategy officer, Kelly, and Lyons, and that. Along with our director of finance, Linderman there, we're spent so much time on our assets management data, and we're beginning to use that more for large-scale developments. And so that's just some bits and pieces, yeah, okay, of what we're doing and what we're focusing on and how we look at these things. Our meetings and our consistency was really disrupted with COVID-19. I don't think there's any secret with what that's created in terms of impact on business, staffing, communications, Zoom meetings, team meetings, and the likes of that. We rewrote right off the bat and added to our emergency services, disaster services past format to identify roles and responsibilities for task force and assistance to the business community, and that was based largely on the work we did post-wildfire analysis that I worked with FEMA out of the States and our economic development groups in Alberta, and we use that for some of our benchmarking in this process. We still have work to do in that area, and that would be at least item 6, develop and distribute a disaster pandemic recovery guide for business. And anyway, I'd be remiss if I did not identify some of the members on the task force, and that would be Jim Crawford, who has a magnificent range of experience with the auction business, regional businesses, and has been an entrepreneur in the business, gentleman himself. Sarita Smith, ATB, she's a capital financial person for our region here, and she was able to work with us on the Recovery Task Force and define CERB programs, business programs, the $40,000 program, and those things, along with Ben Stone from Nesbitt. He did just a dynamic, helpful job right all the way, but these folks were quite busy, and we had Connie Hardner as an entrepreneur, and were very helpful in assisting us in terms of real estate and some of the things that we may not think of how small business were impacted on. So they come in that role along with our secretariat members, and we just moved forward from there. We met weekly. It was almost to the point by the time we got to the end of June that we were having trouble with the secretariat agenda versus the task force agenda. And as we worked our way through the end of June, we pulled back and moved and shifted back to the secretariat model. Okay. Next steps. While we're working on a number of issues and identified many things, we knew that BRNE was something that council and all of us were really concerned about when it was in the past. It just was not moved forward and by others, and we just won't go into depth and detail on that. So we're in the process, and we have a draft terms of reference for a new BRINE committee. And the I is because I don't know anyone that doesn't look for money and investment to make a new business venture go forward. So, and as our Mr. Wagstaff said, oh, Brie, that's like the cheese. And so I go, well, we're looking for a new name for it, so we have Brie. And that's a little footnote. We've just finished working with 60 representatives from Ontario, Manitoba, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and Alberta with the University of Calgary, and with Natalie Gibson, one of the leads for training in Alberta on the BRNE committee approach. And it was just amazing the amount of people from Ontario and Manitoba that it was all online from mid-July till the end of August. And there's probably 400 articles we've all written and communicated and cross-communicated on. And it's so helpful. And I'll tell you, there's just some dynamic, great people out there passionately interested in this whole business retention and expansion and economic development in this Canada. We've included in some of our source work from the University of Calgary, training in that, just so you can get a handle on better what it is we're talking about with these things. The other one we developed was a draft terms of reference. We wanted to spark the conversation, working with Director Wagstaff and others in our secretariat. And this is one of the tourism definitions that I've looked at through the U.S. and Canada. And we did modify it a little bit in terms of Indigenous celebrations and some of our examples and how they relate to tourism on the business aspect, maybe not so much the event side and things of that nature. Okay. Some of the other things we ran into with some of these major developments, investment options, as rail transportation keeps coming back. If you're dealing with canola or firms from Texas or anything to do with Tidewater delivery of value-added products, we really have to keep working with CP Rail just to get sidings at a reasonable cost. They had talked to our initial canola plant operation from India at one level, changed their business reps, and then the price went up considerably. And we'll just leave it at that one. Again, when you look at these large industrial developments, we're seeing that the access road for truck transport and then the natural gas and, again, Fortis Energy is just a killer when we're getting into these projects. We know you're working on your IDP, and we know most of our major projects may cross boundary in some cases. So that's just part of our thought process. And then with the work we did in the past 10 years on offsite levies, offsite levies traditionally have been based on residential development, and maybe possibly in your consideration under programs, we may want to consider a separate one for industrial development. It might be very helpful and beneficial in order to attract new business. Let's go ahead. Our market area population, we talk about Red Deer and Calgary as being the power centers, and at times do try to dominate the scene, to say the least. This is an old slide that ourselves and our other economic development forces around here have used for a number of years. We're missing the boat, and here's why. Airdrie has been so supportive of Olds, and you think of the manpower and the skilled manpower at Olds College. You think of the busing that came forward with the population workforce from Airdrie for Sundial, and even our own staff at times. We have some really great personnel come from Airdrie and commute a lot. And so Airdrie, with Kent and his team there, has worked back and forth with us before Kent left. But we need to add in Airdrie as a really strong supporter, not as, say, community-centric as some of our other major centers around us. That's just obvious statements in that, and I think might have the odd counselor. Oh yeah, nod your head, yeah. Got it, there you go. Next slide. We all know that a business is built on relationships. You have to have a form of integrity, and it is nice to have once in a while not be engaged in drudgery, but have some fun with your business relations and that. And Ad Farm is a group we ran into when I was working with Project Blue Thumb, the social lab, with the Red Deer Watershed Alliance. And I've had people like Bill Butler say that, and Bill says, I need that. I need that now for my staff and our conversations, and others have too. And really, if you tie this in with, we were taught and trained on us in the north there that have interest-based bargaining along with this, and I think you'll always be successful in that. There's a few other things. One who's just arrived today. With our present membership of our secretariat, we have Claire Javits on, and she also is a key rep with Olds College. And I'm pleased to say that she's provided her first monthly report to the secretariat on Olds College activities, which is going to be extremely helpful. And Claire is so busy trying to learn about the community, the college, and that we've retained Mark Johnson, the past president, to backstop her because she just can't meet all our meeting commitments at times and that, and that's proved very beneficial. And we have Mr. Chant, of course, our ace reporter here on all of our things, and Everett Page. He's working with us. I've worked with Everett on many things like CMAG, environmental issues and things like that. Extremely helpful, and really appreciate his past knowledge and experience as a county counselor. It's very, very helpful in his business acumen. And Shelley French, obviously. You might know her, I think, in that. And to answer the other questions probably out there, we're probably getting 3 inquiries a week right now for new business, new industry, and that. We need to work with and help and support people like Old Softgels and Sundial, our small businesses, our new businesses where they've changed, and I hate to use the word pivot, but like Spearhead came from Think Tank, and they've done a wonderful job getting together. Then it was just really dynamic working to recruit SPOG. And SPOG is actually going to do a presentation November 10th to our secretariat, and they're going to explain and give us an overview of the federal, provincial, and private environmental groups who would like to start to associate themselves with Olds and SPOG in the area, in the community here. So that to me is just a positive, high-tech thing. And of course, some of our mad scientists in the community, these are examples from iNaturally Organic. They're in the process of producing probably up to 24 unique products, and some of them are subject to DNA matching, so we have the emergence of boutique personalized medicine, and that's CBD related for pain. They're also working with firms from Los Angeles on that process, and they're also bringing a cream out with CBD for pain that you can apply directly. And then if you're just like your little bit of CBD with water, they showed us a process, and we educated our CEO Friday afternoon. I think he was quite entertained.
I saw the demonstration. I didn't participate specifically in it.
What's in the boardroom stays in the boardroom. And anyway, we have a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of things happening. And with our inquiries, it's like our old days in engineering. Sometimes in the past, we would do 20 submissions to get one project. And this COVID has certainly left us in a tough time and a tough place. We appreciate you and your patience, and particularly appreciate everyone's support. It's hard to keep up with it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. I will start with some questions. Mayor Majewska.
Well, firstly, I'd like to thank Mr. Wright for your incredible work over the past year and a bit, putting together the secretariat and getting it up and running and functioning the way it should. And then all of a sudden, of course, we had COVID hit, and you took the lead on that and have set up the Economic Recovery Task Force, which is doing incredible work, as you've just reported to us as well. I know I can talk from personal firsthand experience. You and I sort of had a meeting of the minds before I took some information from you and your secretariat and task force up to my meetings in Edmonton through the AUMA Economic Task Force that I was appointed to earlier this year. And the accolades out of that group, and to be brutally honest with you, that group has some incredible, I don't know how I got invited to that group. The resumes of the people that sit on that group, and the way they talk about the work that you and your team are doing here in Olds. I bet you the town of Olds was mentioned 10 times more than any other economic, and I'm talking about the city of Calgary, the city of Edmonton, the city of Red Deer. Olds was first and foremost in all of their minds, and that is attributed to the work that you and your two committees there have done for our town. So thank you so very, very much. I don't have a specific question, but I can't give you enough accolades for the work you've done over the past year and a half.
Thank you, Mayor Majewska. Any other further questions or comments? Councillor Harper, Councillor Ryan?
So I just need to know what or who is iNatural Organic? Are they a local company? Can you explain how many employees do they have? Or is it totally entrepreneurship?
It's a little bit of entrepreneurship, a little bit of science. Given the site that they have is only around 2,400 square feet. And they have met all the Canadian licensing requirements. They are actually have contracts for supply of this product to BC, Liquor Control Board, and that for pain relief and that. They have agreements in place with Ontario. And despite COVID and all the ups and downs and ins and outs, they have sent in, beginning in August, in September, the first 20,000 of these little vials to BC alone. I think the price was, CEO can correct me a little bit, I think it was around $40 per, and that. And there's many other products on the way, so. They are, if, I think Scott has had the discussions here already, they're talking about an expansion next year, tripling their capacity in their building. And they have hired actually their first permanent workforce, new members. So, and the science behind this is just incredibly awesome.
The entrepreneur I mentioned Olds specifically, and he went to many communities and said this was the easiest one to deal with, to basically, holistically, it wasn't just silos, it was, he got to various departments, including obviously our secretariat, so that was very heartening, because I said, is there anything we can do to basically make improvements to our business processes? And he said, keep up what you're doing, so that's very heartening.
That is very encouraging, for sure.
Yeah, just a little footnote on that. They're looking at expanding into another direction that we can't talk in detail about right now. But we are actively seeking a site for a second operation.
Councillor Ryan, then Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Through to Mr. Wright. Larry, do you know the makeup of the secretariat as compared to the task force? It sounded like you had some really good people on the task force as well. Would you be ever looking at trying to add extra people to the secretariat from that task force? Because it sounds like it was a good mix.
I think the vision and that surrounds the secretariat is at this level, where they review in an analytical process. And what we're looking for right now is the debris committee, the cheese group, as being really the workforce. And members of our task force, I went back to them and talked to them. I said, we put that task force together with very little in a short time frame, like a week. and then we met weekly from April till the end of June, and that really took a lot of time out of people's lives. I talked to Sarita, being ATB, Rocky Mountain House, Olds, and in this area, about was that of value to her? And she said, absolutely. When I talk to people about development and operations and opportunities and that, I now have this whole new background working with the Scots and everyone else. And I said, well, would you be interested as we move into the BRNE? And she said, I'm in. And I know we've got that similar reception for other members, and we've got actually people that are waiting for us to get out and make the BRE a reality. And you can imagine some of our interested parties in our business community, and that they're there, and they would really like to work in that kind of situation.
It's great. That's good news. Thank you very much.
Not a problem.
Thank you. Any further comments? Questions? I wanted to say thank you, Larry, for all your, or Mr. Wright, for all your hard work and dedication that you've shown to these committees over the past 6-8 months. It's been a challenging time, to say the least, and I've heard nothing but accolades from businesses in town locally that have supported the initiatives you've taken. So I think that should be well recognized as well.
If I may, I'd really like to add the support we've had from Economic Development Alberta. Some of the background work we've done, and it's taken a lot of time, is I worked in the awards presentation committee for EDA, and it gives us access to successful projects since 2017, 2018, and up for awards in 2019 from 35 communities, RETAs, hamlets, and small businesses. And it's too bad we haven't been able to give out awards because of COVID at this point in time, but it gives you tremendous knowledge and insight at your fingertips. And even though I can't talk in detail about it, it really helps us on all these other committees. So when you see an EDA member out there, just thumbs up. Helpful, very helpful.
So going forward, then, would somebody like to make a motion, please, to accept Mr. Wright's report for information? Mayor Majishka?
I'll do just that. I'd like to move that we accept Mr. Larry Wright's Olds Economic Development Secretariat report and look forward to all of them in the future for information. Thank you.
I can't leave the samples, I'm sorry. Thank you. Appreciate the comments and the feedback, and we're trying really hard. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you so very much. We need to ask Councillor Thompson to return to the meeting, please.
I just want to mention that the Secretary will be doing quarterly reports as a standing committee in 2021.
And if I can just add to that, there's one person in behind the scenes, it can be easy for us to sit on these committees and for us work to do and stuff, but the min support and...
the councillor has returned. I think we have to move on. Sorry.
Yeah. I just want to recognize Shelley's hard work in that.
Actually, Deputy Mayor, if I may make a quick announcement that sort of segues from the past report, and I know CAO will probably be upset at me, but we did just get informed this afternoon that AUMA has announced their committee appointments for the 2021-22 year, and CAO has been appointed to the Municipal Government Committee. This is incredibly important. CAO has a wealth of experience from his time at municipal affairs for the Alberta government, and I know he'll bring a wealth of information to this committee at AUMA. And also, I was appointed for a third term at the Infrastructure and Energy Committee, And that's where I was appointed from to the Economic Recovery Task Force that we spoke about earlier. So both of those are incredible committees to be sitting on. Just for the taxpayers to know that AUMA pays for us to be on those committees. The town of Olds does not bear any financial burden on these committees, but what it affords us the opportunity is not only contribute to the conversation, but we're able to lobby and network with a number of people that have a whole bunch of spin-off benefit to the town of Olds when we go do this work. And just want to say congratulations to CAO for his first term on this committee, and I'm proud that I've been appointed for a third term.
Thank you so much for that information, and congratulations to both of you. So we will move along now to, I believe it's our bylaws. Our rates bylaw is up next. I didn't miss anything, did I? Oh, no. Oh, I guess, is there any further business arising from the minutes? Seeing none. All right, we will move along to bylaws. Mr. Merritt?
I'll hand this over to Director Linderman to give a brief update, as just a few things have changed are being proposed to be changed for 2021.
Thank you. So this is the annual review of our rates bylaw, and as CAO mentioned, there are only 3 schedules this time that we are asking to be revised. Schedule A, the water, wastewater, and solid waste bylaw. We are anticipating a 5-cent increase to both water and wastewater consumption for both residential and non-residential. Our Schedule G, fire. There are changes in response to Alberta Transportation approved billing rates. There's also added fees in there for SCBA repairs and testing, and we've added fees in there for our training facility rentals. And under Schedule K, our offsite levies, we increase these 1.8% every year. And those are the only changes that are proposed at this time.
Thank you, Director Linderman. Are there any questions or comments for Mayor Majewska?
Actually, with regards to Schedule K and our increase to the offsite levies, where does that put us in comparison to other like municipalities? I would believe through you, Deputy, to Director Chant.
Thank you. Through the last time when we did this review, through our surrounding areas, we're still very low compared to other comparatives in those aspects on what our offsite levies are. So I think when we talked about percentages and wires and stuff, when we talk about where we're at 70%, we're like 70% behind like the bigger places like, the Airdries and stuff of the world. So still very, very far behind on those aspects, but I guess that's about how I can answer that.
I just supplement that. Once we have our MDP and IDP completed, we are intending to have a review in 2021 on the offsite levies.
Thank you for that, Mr. Merritt. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, through the Deputy Mayor to perhaps Director Linderman, the 0.05 cent per cubic meter increase to water consumption. What would that look like on the average consumer's bill?
So the average, we say, household of about 4 people is about 15 cubic meters. So what, 10 cents, $1.50.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions of Director Linderman? Seeing none, I will ask someone to please make a motion to accept her report. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I move that we accept the rates bylaw 2020-17 as information and to bring it back for a future council meeting.
Thank you so much. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor. I'll ask the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you so very much. We will now, to our next new to you, this one? Okay. Moving along to Council Policy 801C, new to you grant guidelines. Mr. Merritt?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I'll ask Director Wagstaff to speak to this policy.
So the first part of the policy is just housekeeping, as we made some changes that just aligned it to what is actually occurring. Then the latter part of the policy on page 2 was a significant change in the policy, but that's where we'll be adding procedure, because a number of pieces were procedure. And then the one principled fundamental piece that has changed here was the funding parameters. Funding may be considered annually when available and not tying us to any particular timelines on the awarding twice annually. So that's the one fundamental principled change.
Thank you, Director Wagstaff. Any questions of Councillor Harper?
There's another fundamental change, and from now on, you're requesting that the recommendations are presented to Town Council just for information, but not for approval anymore. Just thought I'd point that out.
Yes, thank you. That's on page 1. I do apologize. Yes.
My apologies, I was trying to keep up here. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. So why would that be through the deputy to Director Wagstaff? I mean, that is a pretty important change, isn't it?
The piece of it there was, at that point, we have, on our spectrum, we've provided the committee to be able to review that from the store. We've given from council the parameters that will be judged by each piece, so it's policy driven. And then we'll receive that feedback on an ongoing basis from council. We also look back and go that strong policy parameter around how the groups qualify for the funds has guided it well, and over the time has shown that policy piece, that procedure was strength that council put in place. So it was driven that way.
Councillor Ryan, then Councillor Harper.
Well, I kind of have a concern with it, guys, because you've taken off on the backside of this policy, and on page 2 of the 3, a lot of the information that suggests the parameters for the type of projects that are funded, and then also the funding parameters. So I would think that when you remove all of these guidelines, you're leaving it wide open. And I do think that council does need to have final approval of these.
So that was the piece when we look at the next stage as we go into the 2021, we're looking at all the procedures, and those procedures are still there. That's what will guide the funding pieces. They're not in policy because the policy sets up that the CAO has that responsibility to ensure that those procedures are in place, but those will still be the same parameters.
Councillor Harper.
So I know I've argued with the administration more than once about procedures. I know our administration has the belief that administration approves the procedures, not council, but I don't believe that. I still don't believe that, and this is just one more example of taking procedures out of policy, and then it's not that I don't trust administration, but I believe that council should be overseeing the procedures, have a look to approve them, and go from there, and then say to administration, yes, we've approved these procedures, go ahead. And so that's where my fundamental difference is. I believe council should be approving policy as well as procedures. And this is one more example where we wouldn't have an opportunity to approve the procedures of a program that is fundamentally community-driven. And I believe that council should be approving the funding groups, the funding recommendations to go forward. I'm just gonna go from there, and that's it.
Thank you. Sorry. Councillor Ryan, and then Mr. Merritt would like to speak.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Merritt, if your comment is going along that same lines, I have another question, totally different, so why don't you proceed?
Thank you. It is on those lines, so absolutely, it's council. This is brought to you for information, and we get direction on where we're going. So if there's a change in regards to administration versus council making a decision, perfectly okay to have those comments. I have a concern. I've raised this concern the last few times it was brought up. Administration does, it is employees that are responsible for procedures and the process we follow, whether it's basically in regards to snow removal, road construction, things of that nature, including this. I did indicate, and since it's struck out, but it is going into basically a procedure, so you're seeing what the procedures are, that we will be, when we bring policies back, we'll also attach the procedures for you to have for a reference point. But again, I think I, as the CAO responsible for the employees, I have to trust the experts that are responsible for delivering these programs to basically do the procedures, and I have to rely on council to give us the best policies to deliver it. They are somewhat hand in hand, and we basically will be attaching where we have procedures to policies into the future when we bring them back for you to have both. But I do have a problem with council deciding what the operational procedure should be.
Councillor Ryan, then Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I just want to make sure that these things that are striked out will be going into the procedure. So when I see something that's striked out and then part of it's striked out and then you've got additional words going after it, it makes it look like that's the only thing that's going to be on the policy. And it didn't show anywhere that these things were going all into a procedure. So I want to make sure that things like the minimum of 10,000 will be maintained in the new TU reserve doesn't disappear, is what I'm saying. And some of these other parameters as well.
So that one in particular was taken out because it is in the reserves policy already, that the minimum of 10,000, yeah.
Thank you, Director Linderman. Any, Councillor Overwater? Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I do believe that council should have the final say on this, approving the grants that go out from New to You. I mean, it's not that we ever really have not approved them, but I believe that council should be the one at the end of the day to say, yes, that's where the money should go. Because maybe there will be some circumstances where council does have a different opinion as to where that money should be directed to with New to You. So I do believe council should have final say.
Thank you very much for your comments. As Mr. Merritt did indicate, though, I mean, this is something that now is the time that we make the recommendation. If we're not comfortable with this wording, then we change it now, correct, Mr. Merritt, and it comes back?
No, you have a chance to make that change next week or the week after when it comes back to council. This is for information, but it's the reason we have some robust debates at policy and priorities, and I think you and the mayor and all council spoke to it. This sometimes are the longer meetings because we have the discussions and we do make adjustments to policy based on direction, but we bring it back for approval. And sometimes we get a good, robust discussion where not every councillor is in agreement with each other too, so that brings it back to council for further discussions and votes. So we will take heart your comments in regards to what we heard today, and we'll definitely be bringing this back to a council meeting soon.
Yes, thank you.
But it is for information today, so thanks.
Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, yes, I will entertain a motion then to accept for information, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Yes, I move to accept for information and direct administration to bring back to a future regular council meeting.
Thank you so much. Are there any further comments or questions? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor. I will call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you so very much. We will now move along to a presentation from our ever-patient Old-Fashioned Christmas representative, Mr. Merritt or Mr. Wagstaff, or Director Wagstaff.
I'll let Director Wagstaff introduce Heather.
Just as I introduce Heather Dixon, you have been, in the past, had a community individual come as the president and chair of Olds Fashioned Christmas Committee. This past year, last couple of years, they've been moving in a transition from a long-standing number of the committee members, transitioning to a number of new committee members. One of the pieces that happened this year, and it was sort of a combination, it wasn't solely COVID, but that certainly impacted their ability to recruit a new chair. In the interim, even prior to COVID hitting, we'd made the decision in 2021 to have Heather lead the group, continue to try and look for a chair, but lead through 2021's Olds Fashioned Christmas. And then, of course, the COVID public health crisis came upon us, and that reinforced that importance of having our staff help continue this great tradition. With that, there are going to be a few comments and updates that Heather's going to bring to you, as Olds Fashioned Christmas has historically done so. As they launch their November, they would come before council and just share with you, for an opportunity to share with the community what events that they had scheduled for. And any asks for additional funding, they would come before council. So with that, Heather, if you can please provide us a bit of an update.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Deputy Mayor, Council and Administration. Yes, this year has been very interesting, and we have a great new mix of people on the committee, as well as some people who have been there for a number of years. So that learning is being handed down, which is a fantastic thing. Historically, the committee ran independently with little town staff resources. And this year being, as Director Wagstaff said, a transition year, with many of those long-term volunteers turning over in COVID. It was challenging at times, but we have a great committee organization, and seeing a lot of really positive, seeing a lot of strong people step up to the plate. So that's been very, just really exciting for me to see that. There's also been a lot of great brainstorming around new ideas and new ways to do things, so that's been a really positive thing coming out of this group as well. The group decided back in September to continue on with that calendar of events that is in the newspaper yearly for the last 28 years. It's that green piece of paper that comes in the, now the Mountain View Gazette, I believe. Is that what we're called now? Whatever, you know what I mean. In your newspaper that you get every Tuesday. Yeah. Okay. Little name changes, wasn't sure. Anyway, people look forward to that, and that's why this group decided to keep on with that. And if you talk to any of the volunteers who have stepped down, they talk about people looking for this. Now, it's not as big as it has been in the past, of course, but I just wanted to bring your attention to some of the points that the group came up with on the second page of the event calendar, and that's COVID-friendly events, or not events, sorry, COVID-friendly family activities that could be done to help people just wrap their minds around things and to do things a little differently and safer this year due to COVID. So let's move on. This year, we have distinct committees. So we have heads of different committees that meet together as an executive or an admin team, and then they're responsible for each area. So we have a village committee. They'll be actually meeting on Wednesday to put that village up in Centennial Park. Beautiful weather, I might add. That doesn't usually happen. Parade committee, there's the Winter Wonderland Walk Committee, a decorating committee, and a committee that works on the donations that come in from different community groups, as well as the signs on the old pool building that are invoiced out to different businesses in our community. So that's been something a little bit different this year. Throughout the entire process of planning, our group has been in contact with AHS, making sure that everything that we're looking at is safe and as safe as possible. So the committee decided to go ahead with a parade after a long discussion, noting that the event at the Cow Palace is not happening after the parade. In past years, I know a lot of council has been there, and people rush from the parade over to the Cow Palace, and there's a huge amount of people in that venue. That's not happening this year. So there will not be the backup or backlog of people. We have an over 6 kilometer long parade route for people to stretch out on. It's not a confined space, so being outside is great. And in the past, it's going to be advertised on the radio, in the paper, and discussing physical distancing as well. The parade will go by the Mountain View Seniors Home, spreading cheer to the seniors who are feeling a little disconnected from our community. And on Sunday, the event that happened in the past that I just mentioned after the parade is not happening at all, and the group has brainstormed a new idea to happen on Sunday afternoon between 12 to 5. It's called the Winter Wonderland Walk. There are limited numbers with a pre-registration. Tickets are being handled through Eventbrite so that we know we have a cap on numbers. There will be COVID procedures in place with hand sanitizing stations, masks, so on and so forth, to keep people safe, as well as not letting large amounts of people through at a time. Everything will be gone through the event in your cohort. Mental health has become an even larger issue during COVID, and the committee felt that as much as we could do the events and the celebration, we wanted to provide that opportunity, even though it might look different to our community. The committee would like to do fireworks to lift the spirits of our community during COVID-19, especially since we cannot accept the larger number of people at the walkthrough event that we're doing this year, because we generally have 2,500 people that come to that event. That's just not going to happen this year. Fireworks would be a great way to bring some joy to our community during these times, and we get great feedback on fireworks. However, we do understand that this might become a highlight for the community, and many may want this to be a part of the annual event. Depending upon how our fundraising looks in 2021, this is something the committee would like to explore further for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Director Wagstaff.
So I do just want to reiterate, it's incumbent upon us as a staff liaison to bring forward on behalf of the committee their requests and share with you. So it was the one piece I did say to Heather was if they are looking for fireworks and funding for such, that's something that we would bring to council to see how council would feel upon that. As you see with their budget. And I'm going to ask Heather to comment a little bit on, because there was a concern at the start of the Olds Fashion Christmas planning season on how that fundraising would look. They've had some excellent support from our service clubs this year, and the signage sponsorship. It's a little bit of sponsorship by a lot of local businesses. So we've been very fortunate to still being able to maintain that. And this year, the committee did have a plan to try and look and see if they could do fireworks, because some of their costs were down because they didn't have some of the expenses around some of the traditional things that they would bring in and spend on, like the train that they've had in the past. But they did have a request that if there is fireworks, it's $8,000, and their budget would exceed that. And at the same time, they had discussions about whether or not they would look to the reserve that they have that's held on their behalf in the town. And the concerns that they had there was, for a one-time thing. They didn't want to dip into a reserve when they're not certain exactly how 2021's fundraising was going to pan out for them, because some of those commitments were made early on. So that's just some background I wanted to provide council as we went into questions and deliberation.
Thank you, Director Wagstaff. Any questions or comments for Heather? Yes, Councillor Ryan, or Councillor Harper.
Thank you very much. So you indicated, Ms. Dixon, that the Family Wonderland Walk is pre-registration. How many total tickets are you planning to have people register for the day, for the period of time?
So the total amount, we have a total amount of children for 350. And then we thought 1 to 2 parents per child, or sorry, per, not child, but family group. And so what we did, actually, we've broken that down into 7 time slots that are 45 minutes each. So we're projecting that we will have 50 children through with approximately 20, possibly 25 adults. And they have to, like I said, they have to move through the event to each station in their cohort group, and we let them go as a cohort group through. And we've also, the committee worked very hard at planning out how not to get a backlog. So for example, the Santa pictures are at the very beginning. They're having a socially distanced photo with Santa. There will be no sitting on Santa's lap. There will be a mailbox in place for the kids to deliver their letter to Santa because they cannot tell him their wishes. So they can drop it off there. They will not receive their photo right there. They have to move through the event, and the photo will be available for them on the other side of the Cow Palace at another activity table. That way we don't get a backlog there of people. And then at the very end, they will have hot dogs and a bottle of water that they can get that are pre-wrapped. They will get those on the way out, and they'll need to eat those in their vehicle, as well as individually packaged mustard, ketchup, things like that. So we've taken great care in making sure people are safe going through.
Councillor Ryan had a question, and then I'll go back to your follow-up, Councillor Harper.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz, and thank you, Ms. Dixon, for the presentation. I am happy to hear that you're going to be doing these safe things for the winter walk. My concern is for the parade. I've been in this parade. There are thousands of people who line up on the road, and I'm not kidding, it's just packed. How are we going to social? I understand it's outside, and it's not a confined space. But there's a lot of people, 4, 5, 6 people deep on those sidewalks. There's lots of kids running out onto the street. How are we going to keep them social distanced and keep everybody safe? I'm very confused about that.
So I'm going to speak to that issue, and one of the things separate from this, one of the things that parades need to do is they need to put in a special events permit in for a parade. So that arrived this morning. Timing, unfortunately, was COVID related. This typically would come in advance. They had a meeting last Thursday after they had been conversing with Alberta Health Services. They had a press deadline to meet to get in, so they sent that out, and then had forgotten that they were to also put in a parade permit. So I think there's an opportunity for the town then to work with this group to come back and go, there's the COVID compliance under Alberta Health Services, under the Alberta Health regulations, and then there's the practicality, because one of the learnings we've had that I would share with community groups, and unfortunately I did not in advance share with this group because the directions that I had provided were be COVID compliant, so they understood that they were being COVID compliant by working with Alberta Health Services. But one of the learnings that we have had is Alberta Health's regulations are excellent on paper, but some of them have some practicalities in reality that are difficult to have enforced. And you've touched on one of those, as we've experienced in our sportsplex, to have regulations in place from Alberta Health that say social distance is one thing. To ensure that that occurs is another. So yes, under Alberta Health guidelines. It's an outdoor event. It's spread over a number of kilometers, so there should be enough room for people to social distance if they took that responsibility to individually do so. But ensuring that's going to occur, I think, is resources that neither the committee nor the town would want to employ. So when, as we review that application that came in this morning, I'm going to be going back to the committee and talking about how they might reflect upon other alternatives with the parade and give that some other thought as to how that can be put together and whether or not the parade is something that can be pulled off. And that's going to have to be decided really quickly with the group. But their application for the parade did come in this morning, so we'll be addressing that issue.
Thank you, Director Wagstaff. Mary Majiska has a question, and then we'll go back to Councillor Harper.
Thank you, Mrs. Dixon, for all your fantastic work. This event is, outside of maybe Canada Day, is our premier event in the town of Olds. And I'm glad we're able to find a way to have it, albeit muted, during this pandemic. Just going through your budget here, I see we have a shortfall of $2,888. I'd maybe look to administration to, I don't know if we can use the Olds Destination Collective Fund for that or some sort of reserve somewhere, so that this committee doesn't have to dip into their reserves, because next year may even be a little bit more tight on money. I wholeheartedly agreed the fireworks are such a fantastic thing that happens in our town and will bolster everything. As far as the parade goes, I know you've taken painstaking steps to be able to adhere to the AHS protocols, but I think we've seen, I trust our citizens. I think our citizens have done phenomenal work over the entire stretch of this pandemic, doing what's required by the Alberta Health Services. We see that in our COVID numbers. It just reflects that the town has taken the pandemic seriously and that most people very much adhere to the AHS protocols. So I'm looking forward, especially with a little bit of extra education perhaps, and our CPOs and what have you, will make sure that our citizens are social distancing properly during the parade, and I look forward to it. So, pardon? Well, education, and they've already learned to take care of it themselves. So I trust our citizens will do the right thing.
Well, and I have to agree a little bit with what the mayor said. I think if we get the message out there, people will realize too that we're still in a COVID situation, and if we want to make this event work, we don't know how much longer this situation's going to last. And this could be another year or so that we're going to be having the same protocols. So if people don't adhere to it this year, and then we just won't be able to do it next year if we're under these same restrictions. So I think that we need to just educate what's going to happen during the parade. I think it's a feel-good event. It needs to happen, but people just have to have common sense about it. But anyway, Councillor Overwater, and then finally Councillor Harper.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I was in two mixed minds about it, thinking, all these people are going to be gathered, and I don't want a big influx of COVID and all of that. But it is a feel-good. We need some feel-good stuff happening. And I was kind of looking at the $8,000 for fireworks, and I thought, oh my God, $8,000 for fireworks. The citizens are going to blast us for that. But the citizens all love fireworks. The little kids love fireworks. They don't have to stay out until 11:30 watching it. Watching fireworks just makes everybody feel good. And, I think we probably can find that $2,900 somewhere, that whether it's in the Olds Destination Fund, I don't know how much is in there, or whether council still has money in our fund for stuff that we do for groups or whatever. So I thank you for all your work, and hopefully we can make this a feel-good day for everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Harper.
Thank you. I'm not worried about our citizens. I think our citizens have done a terrific job. It's the 1,000 people that come from out of our community, especially this year when there's probably no other communities going to be doing much. We can't uninvite them. So, yeah, this is my concern. You know, I'm for this year, I'm all in favor of spending the money on the fireworks, but make it quite well known that this is an unusual year. But I'm not in favor of a parade this year. I'm sorry.
Councillor Thompson, then Councillor Ryan.
So like many of the other councillors, I think we have an opportunity to really get out there and promote this properly, to ensure that our citizens are doing the best they can, and I don't think this council wants to be the Grinch that stole Christmas. So we'll encourage our citizens to take good precautions so they're not the Grinch that steals somebody else's Christmas.
Thank you. Director Wagstaff and then Councillor Ryan.
I can wait till after Councillor Ryan. I just wanted to make sure I was on your speakers list once councillors have spoken.
Okay, I'm trying to pay attention, but.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. Well, I do not think that that's a fair comment with regards to classing us as Grinches. I am all about, I love the parade, don't get me wrong, and it's a great event and always has been. I'm all about the safety of our citizens, putting people at risk. And once you have a bunch of kids who are very happy and excited about the parade, sometimes you can't control them. And I don't know about other people who handed out candy during Halloween. I wore a mask. I used an extension to give the treats out of the door. I saw no child at my door wearing a mask, except for a Halloween mask. There was nobody wearing any kind of mask like I was wearing at the door. I am concerned about the safety and the risk factor. And I love the event, and I would love for it to go on. But maybe there's other alternatives, such as lining up people in their car and having the route go longer, so that people are not, standing around on the sidewalks altogether, or making sure that everybody has masks. But then, you do have enforcement to consider too. If you put the rules in place, who's going to ensure that the rules are followed? I do have a concern for this, and I'm not a Grinch. I love the event, and there are other events here on the list that are going to be great. I'm sure this Winter Wonderland market will be wonderful. The Family Winter Wonderland Walk, I should say. And you do the fireworks. We did the fireworks for Canada Day, and everybody had to stay in their vehicle for the fireworks when it was over at the park. So if we do the fireworks, that's an event that is added that wasn't in last year or the year before, I believe. And there's other opportunities for us to celebrate, and I'm just really concerned about putting people at risk. That's all.
Councillor Ryan, Director Wagstaff.
Our approach with the town with COVID has been one that has ensured that we put our public safety collectively forefront. I think with the special events application for a parade that has come in, there's a way to work with the committee, especially if I've heard correctly, and certainly correct me if I'm wrong, if council is supportive of us working with them with a way to find some fireworks for 2020, I think there is lots of room for us to be able to go back to that committee with that application that they have before us into how we can reformat with them a parade approach that not only meets Alberta Health guidelines for public rallies, marches, parades, and demonstrations, but do as we've done consistently of ensuring the intent as well as the letter of the guidelines is followed. adhered to. So we would go back with that application and work with the committee, Olds Fashion Christmas Committee, to rethink how that can be done, especially if there is something like fireworks as a display as well.
Thank you, Director Wagstaff. Any further comments or questions of Mrs. Dixon? Oh, Mr. Merritt.
I do have a question. The permit comes in, but AHS are one of the signatures to sign off on it. Is that not correct? And does that also include enforcement requirements to make sure we're safe? Because I see that they are introducing more stricter gathering points, of even suggesting for Christmas that fewer families are not congregating. So I do have employees that I have to worry about as the CAO, and I don't want my employees to basically not have a good Christmas because of this. If they have some concerns, I have to take those concerns seriously from a Health and Safety Committee point of view. So I like what Director Wagstaff is talking about, but I still have concerns, and this is a time, and I have to say, what the committee's put together and how they're amazing creativity and getting things done virtually in different ways and making sure we're having protocols. And my understanding is that we can have parades that are virtual. We can have parades that where maybe not, but where the floats are stationary and cars can basically go by and people can see the so I wouldn't want to rule out that there's not other innovative ways about the parade, because I think the parade is obviously our concern, because in Olds it's a tremendously successful parade, just like our Canada Day parade. So I'd love to have it, but I don't want people to be risking, especially as the head of administration, my staff, to be in any way in harm's way.
Councillor Overwater, then Councillor Harper, then Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. It's going to be interesting 2 weeks from now, with Halloween being over, I guess, is the incubation period for COVID, correct? So I think we sort of need to take a straw poll here today for our people, for Ms. Dixon and for Mr. Wagstaff, because I don't think we can leave this too long, because people are getting ready. People have asked for, or you have it out there, like, do you want to put a float in and stuff like that? We're November 1st, and people are going to start, gearing up for that. And I think we should maybe take a straw poll as to, okay, should we just kind of do fireworks and you do a drive-by and you get a bottle of water and a hot dog and go to the fireworks, versus going to Winter Wonderland and having a parade. I know it's going to be great for people to have that parade and all of that, but maybe we kind of need to do a straw poll on that as to, because I would hate to leave it at the final moment. They've put all this planning in, and then all of a sudden council comes back and says, no, you're not going to do that. So I don't know, can we kind of do a straw poll as to what members think?
Notwithstanding the need for a straw poll, I've heard very well. They have an application that we received this morning for special events permit, which they require on a parade. I think there are ways that we can work with the committee to find some alternatives, because if they were to go through their application currently, it would hit all the check marks, because they've been working with Alberta Health Services. It would hit all the check marks with Alberta Health Services. But we also have a standard here within Olds, because you do what is best for your community in your community circumstances. That's the approach we've taken when it comes to COVID, and frankly, we've had many municipalities look and say, ask us, how was Olds doing it? We heard that when we had an emergency management operations center in place. We heard that repeatedly about the manner that we approach some of these, so we can very productively, I think, work with this committee to have this as a successful piece, and do it alternatively, because that is one of the hidden pieces in the guidelines, is that one bullet that says oh, I had it highlighted here, where did it go? What, I'm going to paraphrase. One bullet that says, look at alternatives, paraphrasing. In amongst the, 5 pages of data that you would say, hey, do this, do this, do this, do this, they'll get all of those check marks off in the way that they're doing it. But we know for our community that we want to be able to have a celebration, but do it in an alternative way that takes safety as a paramount piece. So
But does that also include the Winter Wonderland Walk and all of that? Because that's inside.
that is, so they've worked through, so as you've seen events be able to be COVID safe, the cleaning protocols, the distancing people out, the pre-registering and going in cohorts, all of those pieces are being done in the Winter Wonderland that the volunteers have organized to ensure that there's that safety. As you heard from Heather, the traditional sit on the Santa's knee is not going to occur, but having Santa in the background, for a picture where they can wave at Santa and see Santa at a significant distance is going to be there. As we know, the spirit of young children is, seeing Santa is almost as exciting as being on his knee. So Mr. and Mrs. Claus this year will be at a significant distance. So they've gone through and worked with Alberta Health Services to make sure that those protocols are all not just in place, but that they're going to be adhered to.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Harper, then Councillor Ryan.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you will certainly look at alternatives to a real parade with thousands of people lining the streets. I do have major concerns if that were to take place. And so I'm glad that you would be looking at other avenues to have a parade. And if we had a straw poll, I think Councillor Ryan and I would be the only ones that would be opposed to a live parade. I'm not sure.
Don't make assumptions.
Okay, let's have a straw poll then. No, I'm not kidding.
Councillor Ryan.
Well, I don't want to beat a dead horse any longer. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I just think that we need to, go ahead and look at alternatives. Like I'm saying, I love the parade. I think it's a wonderful event. But there's other ways to do them now, and I certainly appreciate our CAO's comments with regards to some different ideas. I've never thought about having the parade stationary and us drive by, so that's actually not a bad idea. So there's other alternatives we can look at and still have an event. And I think the walk the next day sounds to me like it's, you've got all your bases covered there, Ms. Dixon, so I think things can progress, so we can still have some wonderful Christmas events without putting people at risk.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Mayor Majewska.
I think maybe instead of a straw poll today, we should allow administration to explore some of these alternatives, and we can actually make a full decision on next Monday, as it's a regular council meeting, and we can have an update then.
Thank you, Mayor Majewska. That was going to be my suggestion. But I really do like the idea of the reverse parade. That's what I would call it. I like that idea.
Well,
I think that's excellent.
We have to explore all options and make sure that people are going to be safe and healthy throughout this scenario, as I can only compliment the committee for all the innovation that they have done so far, and anything that was stationary that they put the precaution that I'm very comfortable with, because you have an ability to control the number of people that are going in. You're staging it on a scheduled point of view. The parade, the traditional parade causes me some concern.
Thank you, Mr. Merritt, too. And I think on that note, too, Councillor Ryan had the concern about our officers, peace officers, having to monitor. I think it'd be easier to monitor vehicles and have a lineup point than it would be to try and ensure people are actually social distancing. Is there any further comments or concerns for Ms. Dixon? I just want to say thank you to you and your committee.
I did forget to tell you, no matter what shape or form a parade might be, there will be no candy at all.
No.
this year being thrown out because that is a regulation
Yes.
through Alberta Health. So
Well, we just have to educate our people on that.
that's right.
Yeah, that's fine. And I think that would be sensible. But again, thank you to you and your committee for all your work. This has been a difficult year to try and plan anything that can be a feel-good event and be successful. So this is a tough one, but thank you so much. Any further questions or comments for Mrs. Dixon? Seeing none, would someone like to make a motion to accept a report for information and come back with more information at a regular council meeting, perhaps? Is that feasible?
Yes, it is. There was a full, waiting to see how this discussion went. There was an intent to prepare something for next Monday's meeting.
It would be nice if council would thank the committee members for all the innovative hard work they've done, but also bring this back for more information at a future council meeting, and I believe
Yeah, I see. Our communications coordinator, Mrs. Leatherdale, would like to speak.
Here we go. Our committee was very excited, and we do have an ad going in the paper on Tuesday. So that will be revised as the committee works on their revisions, just so everyone knows. We'll do our best in getting that communication out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, besides the fireworks. Director Wagstaff.
And I do want to add to what Mrs. Leatherdale had commented on. The committee has also worked on, because they would need a plan B in the background with concerns about all of this, that if COVID began to impact negatively, that they have had many discussions about what and how they may have to adjust moving forward, given the uncertainty to what the COVID circumstances bring. So I think the committee is well prepared to be able to look at some of those alternatives, because they've already discussed many of them in the background in preparations for what might unfold.
Thank you for that. I'm looking for someone to make a motion, please. Councillor Harper.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I move that we accept for information the report from the Old Fashioned Christmas Committee headed by Ms. Dixon. And we thank the committee for all their hard work. And we look forward to the next council meeting for further information to be provided to council.
Excellent. Thank you very much. No more further questions or comments for Mrs. Dixon? Thank you. Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor. I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. That's just great. Now we're moving along to adjournment.
I have a comment, please.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Overwater.
Thank you. I guess I really want to make it clear to our newspaper reporter that's there that the discussion that we had on the honorarium is, I'm not sure if there was a miscommunication as to me, he sort of indicated that we had gone over our budget for the last few years, which I find that difficult to believe. So I think going forward at our next meeting, possibly Ms. Linderman will have some more information for us so that we can get that clarity that we need, so that all of our residents don't feel that we're just out there spending willy-nilly and putting down on our budgets whatever we think and it's just getting passed, because that doesn't happen. If we're over budget, usually our CFO or Director of Finance goes to the mayor and says, you guys can't do that because you're going to be over budget. So I just want that clear for the newspaper. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Overwater. Any further comments? Okay, moving forward, I'm looking for an adjournment. Mayor Majewska. Thank you so much, folks, for today's meeting. To administration, thank you for sitting here so patiently with all of us, and have a good evening.